What's up, people?
Hello, Squishy.
I was just about to check my.
You notice how I kept that in order so that it wouldn't do the thing where it's like you're not even a sound.
I will say it did disappear in the middle for a second.
I worked so hard. I controlled it.
It did fade a little in the middle there. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Feels like it's been 80 years since we've been here. Damn. I mean, we were here last week. We were just talking about a very happy story.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Time to drop.
I'm supposed to maybe read that. I'm so nervous.
It's painful. It's that. We're gonna talk about Elbaph today. I think we let people come in. We let people give a bit of breathing room for people to come in before we jump into it. Your first time live. This is a couple first time chatters we've had today. No worries. Normally being a YouTube watcher, happy to have you here. Today's gonna be a fun one.
You've come here on a wild day that's gonna end up being 2 videos.
Yes, there is 2 videos today. One of them, Elbaph. Did I typo something? Where did I typo? Did someone just say that, or did I typo? I'm so used to typoing that I'm like, oh fuck, what did I? Shit.
You just assumed you typoed?
You just said it good. I just assume I typo. When someone says something like that, when someone like puts in a word that's in the title spelled wrong, I'm assuming I typoed and I'm being corrected because it happens so often. Thank you for subscribing at tier 1. I missed your name because the notification bar is so small. Paths 425. Thank you so much. 8 months. 8 months of subbing. That's incredible. That is, you know what that is?
8 months?
Yeah, that's about
3/4 of a year.
It was about
hey, rabbit.
8/9 of a pregnancy.
Dear God, did you just say that? A pregnancy is nearly 10 months, I'll have you know.
I mean, I've heard different doctors count it both ways. I don't know why we draw the distinctions the way we do. I don't know, man.
I do. It's 40 weeks. 40 weeks, man.
Okay. Anyways, hi everybody. This is exciting. I'm excited to talk about Elbaph. Interestingly, and I don't think this is going in a YouTube video, so I'm going to start here for the stream.
Just a minute. I have to say something very important. Paths? Yes, it means you're pregnant.
Oh, okay.
There, we're good.
I gotta scroll down so I can actually see chat again.
I also have to say something.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Drawk, can you turn up Mama just a little bit?
Just a little bit? Okay. Sorry, you're far too quiet and you need to be raised.
I hear that all the time. I hope you know.
It's weird because you used to be louder than me, but the second I moved, my mic was like, I'm gonna work now.
I keep mine up kind of high because I get pissed off when I can't see my screen.
My cursor's being so slow in the second monitor. I'm trying my best. I accidentally right-clicked on Lucky Lav instead. Okay, give me a second here. Jesus Christ, I have never seen it so slow. Oh my God, I'm trying so hard to raise your volume, and
try a thunderclap. Thunder.
There you go. You're louder now. We did it.
whoa, thunder.
Okay. So
we're supposed to riff for a minute to let people come in.
Yeah.
And I have a riffy topic.
Okay. Well, yeah, you can do that. I mean, I was in the middle of a sentence before we deviated to raise your volume.
Am I supposed to remember that? That was a decade
I guess
ago.
never mind. You go ahead.
So I'm gonna let you finish your sentence because I just didn't remember because it was a decade ago. Okay, what was your sentence? Boy.
It was the reason we're doing this is interesting, which was I was just thinking about like news, politics, things going on in the world, and something about what I was reading clicked with me, and I went, holy shit, this reminds me a lot of Elbaph, these thoughts that I'm seeing from some commentators that I'm watching. And I called Mama and was like, what do you think of this? And she was immediately like, oh, yes, absolutely. And started to riff off of it and have her own ideas. And I was like, okay, we figured out what we're doing for Sunday immediately. Let's do it instantly. Guys, I hate to tell you, I'm never going to spell Elbaph right then. If that's just how it is, if that's the official spelling. So it's exciting because this
Telling
came out of
Elbaph
nowhere.
wrong is right, then you are the rightest.
What were you gonna say? What's your riff topic? Is it about woodpeckers?
Oh my God, I can't believe you brought that effing effer up.
Well, now you have to because I've said that, and now people are going to be like, question mark, question mark, question mark, the way chat does when you say something that feels like it's out of left field.
Why are you giving so much time to the
Whoa!
woodpecker?
The woodpecker deserves it. Whoa, that's a lot of gifts.
Hooray!
Thank you, Mountain Ash Tree. You subbed with Prime for 10 months. Thank you so much. Who was the Hype Train? I'm missing it. God damn. Why are my notifications broken? So I want it noted. I can have the ability to see activity. There, I changed it. There, I can see things. I can see things now.
Are you bragging about being able to see things? Because
I can see notifications again. The notification bar broke, and I realized I have the power to change it.
It's a really small brag to be like, I can see things.
I don't have to scroll up to see when people sub anymore. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mountain Ash Tree.
If you were a person who was without sight and then you were like, I can see things, I'd be like, this is an incredible moment.
Yeah.
But that's not what we have going on.
Well, I'm a person without tech UI literacy who can now see things, so that's impressive.
That's a good addition. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Blindness.
I don't know how to operate UI at all. The user interface, the user's not me because I do not interface.
All right. Well, because of you, we have to give airtime to a woodpecker.
Okay, yeah. Do you want to explain why we have to give airtime to a woodpecker?
His name is Pecky McGee.
Pecky McGee, that's a great name.
He's a rat bastard.
Uh-huh.
The other day, I woke up in my home. I had to go to work, but I didn't have to go to work yet. I certainly didn't have to be awake yet. I'll tell you that much for free. And I was like just enjoying a nice lazy morning in bed. You know the kind where you know you don't have to get up, but you're awake?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. All of a sudden, my entire house was coming apart at the seams, and there was a noise so god-awfully loud that I was like, holy shit, it's the apocalypse. The apocalypse is here.
Yes.
And I ran around the house because we have, what's it called? No, don't say I didn't say what's it called. We have the kind of sewage that is on our property, and we have...
It's called a septic tank, yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. And a well. And so we were like, I'm like, is the well doing bad things? Is the septic system doing bad things? What is doing bad things? Are all the pipes in my house exploding? What is going on? I ran around all over the place. I go outside to see if it gets louder. It does indeed get louder. It's Pecky McGee on my metal roof, pecking so goddamn hard. It sounds like the entire house is coming unglued. There's no words. I've heard woodpeckers before. This is not what's taking place. I looked it up. It's a special woodpecker. We're not even really supposed to have a lot of them in this area.
Really? So, that's cool. Wow. So you have a special, rare, cool woodpecker. So it doesn't have like the big red crest that the ones who normally live here do?
No, it has like almost a square beak. The end of it.
What? I gotta look this up.
Yeah. He's a crazy dude. He said to himself, and I quote, "What if I pecked this house down to the ground?" So then,
there's so many cool looking woodpeckers out there. I tried to find a square beaked woodpecker, and there's a lot of cool looking little guys.
Yeah, it actually turns out there's a whole woodpecker universe we don't even know about. So I was not happy with the woodpecker, and I yelled at him, and I was like, "Woodpecker, go get a life somewhere else!" And the woodpecker was like, "Ah!" He was very, very concerned about my anger. He woke up. He totally chose violence. So then I was convinced of something that you later also tried to convince me was a problem, in that maybe the woodpecker could smell termites and was trying to get into my house.
Woodpeckers try to eat bugs. That's their whole deal, is they eat bugs.
Yes. I was concerned about the exact same thing. I was like, get on a turquoise barbecue. What if this MFer thinks I have bugs in here? What if he's right? And then you said it, and I was like, God dang it, that is not helping my fear. But then I found out from your father, who went golfing today, when he came back, he was talking about how the woodpeckers keep pecking the metal signs on the golf course.
Huh.
And we have a metal roof. And it turns
Uh-huh.
out woodpeckers like hitting metal.
Just to hear that sick beat.
I think woodpeckers are also drummers, which in my opinion makes sense. Like if I had a woodpecker's ability, I would drum. Wouldn't you drum?
I kind of. Do you know why they have that ability, by the way? Do you know like the physics behind what they do?
Why?
Okay, so you know how concussions are when your brain rattles around and it hits the edges of your skull that's
I
supposed
know
to
what a
hold it in place?
concussion is. My house has a concussion currently.
Yeah. So woodpeckers, the way they're able to use their heads to smash into stuff without giving concussions is the like tendons and muscles that connect the tongue to the base of the spine instead wraps around both sides of their vertebra, springs through their skull and coils around their brain so that those tendons just hold their brain as it shakes as they smash into stuff, keeping them safe from concussions.
I love this for us. I also love that the woodpecker who I've named Pecky McGee.
Yeah.
I went outside and Pecky McGee was sitting on the tree making fun of me for my fears and anger. He was just staring at me from across, sitting on the tree, just staring at me. And I was like, you go, move on, Pecky McGee. Get a life, go see something else. And Pecky McGee just looked at me and made some weird ass fucking woodpecker sound. And then was like, haha, the minute you leave, I shall concuss your house again. And then the long story short is he literally did. I went inside and he was like, haha, metal roof for the win.
I also have a cool bird where I live.
Is it a woodpecker that pecks your house to
No,
death?
no, not at all. I have honestly, Bellamy in One Piece probably could use his spring powers to prevent concussions the same way. That's actually really cool to think about. All right. I have the Bird app because I've told you before that the Bird Watcher gave me the Bird app. He forced me to get it and I love it. And I heard hoo, 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 outside my house at night. And I was like, hell yeah. And I pull out the Bird app and the Bird app goes, that's a great horned owl. And I go, holy shit, there's a great horned owl that lived here. And I go, well, she needs a name. So I let my brain give me the first name it thinks of. And I'm like, whatever name comes to me, that is the universe telling me that's her name.
I loved the name. Your wife did not.
So you've heard the name.
I voted for it because she went into a chat with all of us on Instagram to find out if your name was the dumbest name ever named. And we all liked it.
Yeah. So I let the universe name it. My wife hates the name I've given it. But again, I just let the universe decide. I zoned out and I went, whatever name comes to me is the name of this great, majestic, great horned owl who lives in my neighborhood. And I've heard her like several times since, and it's Karen. The great horned owl's name is Karen. That's the first name that came to mind when I just zoned out and let it happen. Oh, someone asked who this character is. I just do little warm-up characters while we're waiting to start, where I just like draw whatever. So yeah, the great horned owl's name is Karen.
The name Karen so much. She is so pissy about it. She's like, this is a majestic and wonderful animal. And Drawk has named it Karen.
She also, I was like, well, you can name the bald eagle who lives in the neighborhood. And she named him Bob. And I don't know if she did that to bug me because of Karen, but I actually think Bob is a very good name for a bald eagle.
I think Bob is a great name.
I think Bob is a fantastic name for a bald eagle. I had
grandpa named Bob. I have one. I approve.
Mm-hmm.
I think grandfathers and majestic eagles should be named Bob. I have a couple of eagles that live here. Weirdly, I've never named them. I usually name everything.
Mm-hmm.
I name everything, so it's weird.
All right. Are we gonna, should we start? We have our people siphoning in here. We got our friends. We got folks rolling in.
I'm making hippie strings today.
I do like it. Seems like Chad agrees with her more than us about the name Karen, but that's my friend. That's my friend, the
Your
owl.
entire family. I like that Chad is like, that sucks ass and your wife is right. Because meanwhile, this is exactly who your family is. Because she told all of us and was like, he wants to name it Karen. And then she expected us all to be like, no. And we were like, that's majestic. How dare. And she was like, are you kidding me? And to preface this, we often agree with your wife on almost everything.
Usually you guys are more likely to agree with her with stuff than me.
We're always like, no, what are you doing? And this time, all of us were like, we love Karen. And she was like, you guys are the worst. How dare you ruin this beautiful great horned owl? And I was like, people named Karen would be really hurt. Lots of really good people are named Karen. I don't know what to tell you.
You know how you can
Including
tell
this
the good
owl.
Karens? All of the cool Karens don't care that their name is being used the way that it is.
I feel like that is a really good story and also a really easy to be cool. Like if you're named Karen and you just don't care about it, that really says a lot about you. But it's
It
so
says you're
fast.
chill.
You don't even have to do a lot of work. You're just like, whatever. And people are like, that chick is so cool. I don't
okay.
care. Exactly,
Are we ready?
buddy. Exactly.
How ready are you?
I'm medium ready. Do you want to know why?
What's that?
I am building bead strings for my windows. I don't know if you heard the rumor, but my entire house is glass. And so,
Okay.
because my entire house is glass, animals that are bird-like keep flying into all my windows.
You need to put up decals. You really do.
I'm not putting up effing decals. So I
You
looked
have
it up.
you have to stop the birds.
I need you to be quiet so I can tell you what's taking place.
Okay.
So I looked it up and they were like, decals can be successful if you put a lot on or you cover the whole window. And I was like, I'm not covering my whole window. That's not going to happen. And then it was like, but because I noticed that none of the birds go into the window that I have the bird feeder. And it's like birds will prioritize where food is. So if I put bird food on each window, they won't fly into it. So I got a bunch of bird feeders to go on each window. And then it was like, on the opposite side of the window, you should get strings of beads that will reflect light in unique ways so that they can see the surface tension of the glass. So now I am literally making strings of beads, starting with a red string all the way to a purple string, because if I just strung up normal beads, your sister would be like, that's not in rainbow order, since she is obsessive.
No, she's right though. Rainbow order must be respected. Rainbow order, if you have rainbow colors, you have to organize them in rainbow order or you're committing a crime. Like you can't not. That's not okay.
Yeah, Mama, can you please apologize to YouTube for the slight beady sound that your mic is going to have throughout?
I'm going to do it right now. Sorry, YouTube. On the other hand, YouTube, because of that slight annoying sound you had to hear, you saved birds. Okay, I'm going to put these beads aside now. I'm just was like, while we're riffing, I'm going to keep working on my bead project to stop killing birds. And I'm, of course, going to do it in rainbow order so I don't have to listen to you or your sister be like, how dare you put things in windows in non-rainbow order? It's like you hate the world. Okay, I'm putting this back now. Beading is finished. Long live beading.
Sorry, I just need to put this in place so it's not going to shake.
What's not going to shake?
I keep getting texts. I'm just going to need to find a way to put my phone away.
Oh, you know how you do that? You just grab it. You guys are going to get all the birds moving over because they die in the States? What? What?
Okay.
What are you saying, Monomon? Every single year. The reason this freaks me out that what Monomon has said is every single time the Canadian geese are going in the field near my home for to fly south, I'm always like, come on, guys. You really got to stick together. You're going down to the US. They don't have health care. They will not help you. You got this. really stick together now. So it's because of the pollution? I don't know. What, Monomon? What are you saying? Where'd you go, Drawk? Are you gone?
I just had to respond to something. I will. Okay. Are we ready now?
Did you hear us in any of our jokes?
No,
and
I
they
did
were
not hear your
funny.
great jokes. Sorry.
Oh my god, this is so upsetting. On a scale of fish to flower, this is Gantu upsetting.
Oh my god. What do we do? What?
I can't believe you laughed at me for something that is sacred in our family.
I had to reply. I'm very sorry.
Oh, Monomon was talking about bird flu. Thank God. Okay, Monomon, we're good because you were killing my spirit, my soul, my essence. But we're good now.
Where are we? Are we ready? Are we ready?
I was born ready. You're the slow one who walks around.
Okay. This is the start. This is YouTube start. We ready, people? It's YouTube video time. Hello, people of YouTube. If you've clicked on this video, it's because you want to see what the themes of Elbaph are going to be, or it's the future. You know what Elbaph's themes are, and you want to see how incredibly right we were way back in the past. So welcome.
What if we're wrong?
What if we're wrong? We're right.
If we're right, we're wrong?
No. We're right is all. We don't have to say what if we're wrong because we're right.
Oh, well, I love the confidence. I'm here for the confidence.
Yeah, no, you should have confidence because these are incredible ideas. And I want to say right off the bat, at first, it isn't going to seem like a One Piece discussion. You're going to be like, whoa, where's the One Piece in this? And I promise you, this is 100% about One Piece, but we need to set the stage for some of the conversations we're going to have because we're taking on, as you can see down below, you can look in the corner, you can see what we're about to say. There is some controversial thoughts coming, and I really want to set the stage to help you understand why this is going to be the themes of the arc. Mama, should we get started?
Secret? I don't think they're controversial at all.
I think that these are going to sound like very, very, very controversial ideas. And I want to start with a very simple and very difficult concept. Peace is not good. What? Why are we laughing? What's up?
It's a very simple concept.
It's very simple. Peace is not good.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
What?
What if One Piece is actually a misspelling of what it is, and it's actually one P-E-A-C-E?
Okay, but we can't go off on that right now. That's something we haven't thought about yet that we've got to put aside.
What if it's both? And what we're talking about today is the connector of that.
I want to put this aside. We can bring it up later for perhaps. A lot of people are saying things like they like when people cause problems or peace is boring, but that's not what I'm talking about when I say peace isn't good. So what I want to talk about is peace as a goal.
What we're talking about.
Yeah, it's not what we're talking about. Sorry. It's that the idea that peace as a goal, peace as an objective is not a good objective. Peace as an outcome.
For 2 seconds.
What are you doing? All right, we'll come by. This isn't about suffering builds characters. No, this isn't about suffering builds character. This isn't about, I don't mean pacifism isn't good. I'm not saying because peace will go away. None of this is what I'm talking about. And I think this is immediately highlighting, though, that you guys are seeing there's a lot of angles you can go where peace starts to break down. I'm going to bring up one of the main pieces of reading I did in preparation for this was a document called The Ways of Peace by, let me grab this name to make sure I don't say it wrong, by Gray Cox. Yes, his name is Gray Cox. I read a document written in, I believe, 1986. I was correct. Written in 1986 by Gray Cox, called The Ways of Peace, A Philosophy of Peace as Action. COX.
I'm here.
And hi. And going into Gray Cox's Pieces Action or Ways of Peace, he talks a lot about the idea of there being lots of different ways people define peace. And I think what you guys are highlighting by having all these ways that peace is not good, that aren't even what I'm talking about, what we're talking about today, kind of highlights one of the problems with peace as a goal, which is peace has a bunch of definitions, and a lot of them are just like the absence of conflict or the absence of war. And something that is defined by only an absence as a goal, kind of inherently slippery. Do you want to take it back and talk a bit about your view on peace as a goal is not an inherently good goal?
Philosophically, because that's kind of where I was going to go first.
Yeah.
Okay, so on a little mini tangent through philosophy, lots of people understand this idea of peace being the ultimate goal that you're going to have. But throughout history, that's actually been one of the things that people have, that philosophers have agreed on the most, is that peace as a goal is dangerous, and that peace as a goal causes the most conflict. And it's interesting because we're talking about, like, from Hobbes to Machiavelli. Philosophers have agreed on this idea, and it's not every day that you see Hobbes and Machiavelli, rocking out the same ideas. They're not generally on the same side of things. And so I was just going to give you a few different perspectives from philosophers on why peace isn't something that we should be looking for. And so you have Thucydides, that peace without power leads to conquest. And so this is a philosophical idea that if you have peace in a place but no power accompanying that peace, and it's just people living in a peaceful kingdom, that a moment that one person no longer wants to live in that type of a kingdom, boom, it's done. Yeah. Right? You have shattered all of the essence of who you are. Machiavelli says that a leader has to prioritize control over peace, because peace as a goal means that everybody will have a different idea of what it means to live peacefully. And unless you have an overarching power to go along with that, then people are going to take advantage of the peace again. But one of my very favorite ones is Sun Tzu, who says peace without preparation invites war. Which, Canada, I'm looking at you. That if you aren't prepared to protect your peace, then you are at the whim of everyone else, because you've created a vacuum for those who don't put peace as a priority. And you basically said, hey, are you interested in having this? And then they're like, I am, thank you.
We're going to come back to talk about this more, but I think you can absolutely see that in Elbaph already, with if King Harold is saying, yeah, we are going to be peaceful. Let's say you don't have Shanks protecting. Let's say you don't have Dory and Brogy coming back. Who is providing peace to Elbaph? Is it just the natural strength of the giants? Well, there are a lot of people stronger than giants. How is peace being preserved and protected if peace is the goal? I want
lots of people would say that the real goal should be justice, that the ability to have a justice system that works strongly so that you can keep coming back to it to ask whether or not people are getting the justice they deserve. And I think when people hear the justice they deserve, they always think about it negatively. Whereas in philosophy, we would talk about justice as being a positive thing, that getting the justice you deserve might also be getting the reward for your good efforts. It might mean getting recognized for saving others, etc. Right? But the idea of striving for justice rather than striving for peace.
And I really like that especially. You might have heard this quote before, but I think it's not a quote. It's not a quote people think about a lot with this figure, because Martin Luther King Jr. is mostly today praised as, yeah, he's the peaceful protest guy. And that's a whitewashing of historically his opinions. A lot of Martin Luther King Jr.'s philosophies are kind of washed over because he's become an embodiment of something we're about to talk about, which is the upholding of peaceful protest. But he has a quote. True peace is not merely the absence of tension, it is the presence of justice. And I think that's going to be a huge theme. And as we've already seen with Fishman Island, Oda is very clearly aware of the philosophies and the writings of Martin Luther King Jr., and it comes up in how he writes his pieces. If you read Fishman Island, it is full of MLK inspiration, right? And this is an arc where one of the other themes that we've seen already, this doesn't count as a prediction, we're not going to talk about it a lot here because it's already obvious, is the idea of dreams, and specifically dreams of children. And that comes up so often through the writings of Martin Luther King Jr. that I cannot imagine that these are unrelated. I cannot imagine that. I actually have some other quotes I collected from a document where, here we go. Yeah. Martin Luther King Jr. called for I'm going to say a word that is not a slur but makes people a little uncomfortable, and I'm quoting Martin Luther King Jr., just so people have a heads up. Martin Luther King Jr. called for a transition from an obnoxious negative peace in which the Negro passively accepted his unjust plight to a substantive and positive peace in which all men will respect the dignity and worth of human personality. That, to me, is such a statement against peace as objective.
Yeah. And so I think that people also feel like that people are talking about there not being peace, and that having and would be wrong, and that we should want to strive to peace. But I'm just about to say it.
Yep.
You know what?
Yep.
History demands I do.
Okay.
So if you look at the shit that's going on with Trump right now, and if you're a person who doesn't like this and hates it when you feel that I go leftist, good, stay here. You're the person I'm talking to. So when you're looking at what's going on with Trump right now, and how reluctant some people are to get into the fray and the fight of it, and how everybody is being so precious with their actions, and then you have a bunch of other people, and the people who are being precious with their actions are often the politicians and the people in power. Meanwhile, there is a large populace of people. They tried to hide it from everyone. The world doesn't see it. It takes a lot of effort to find it. But there's a lot of people in the United States who are actively, peacefully protesting, which is super important in the world of peace. Actively, peacefully protesting, etc. Mm-hmm. You'll see that their reluctance mirrors the problem of peace. Over the last however while, since World War II mostly, you have seen people treat peace like a precious object not to be disturbed. Even prior to that, to the point that I feel like places like the United Nations and the G7, etc., will overly stay separate of giant issues that are taking away people's humanitarian rights, because they don't want to, quote unquote, disturb the peace or the rights of the nations that they are working with. Mm-hmm. Whereas what I feel that it's instead doing is we're saying, do not disturb or ask for equity for the sake of peace, means that you're actually creating levels of inequity for humans. Because if you're not standing up for the rights of women who are forced to cover their entire bodies and only have their eyes out and aren't allowed to voice in public because you pretend that's cultural, that is an opportunity to actually say, that's not cultural, that's oppression.
So
but we do not talk about it. We are afraid to say anything about it for the sake of peace.
I want to talk now about something that was mentioned here, peaceful protest, because this is one of the core themes we wanted to touch on before getting into this, which is, why is it, do you think, in the modern world, as we've progressed, liberal democracies of our world have prioritized so desperately the protection, until very recently, of peaceful protests? Peaceful protests are damaging to the economy. They disturb things, they ruin public order, they make people upset, they raise tensions. Why are these protected? They are inherently negative to the society, right? In theory. Well, there's a really good reason for that, and I don't think a lot of people are going to like this. It is very simple. We are not different humans. Humans are not fundamentally different from the way we used to be. And what that means is if humans are denied a non-violent method of recourse for injustice, there will always inevitably be violent recourse for injustice. I am not kidding. Even in the modern world, as civilized as we think we are, if peaceful protests were not protected, there would be riots to injustice. That would happen. It is not because of kindness and ethics and human rights that modern governments choose to protect and preserve peaceful protest. It is because they are a less destructive way of informing a government that the potential for violence still lingers, that there is a border.
More to that. If you're talking economically also, governments generally, up until a point that they think that they can fully control the populace, and if their goal is to control the populace, it becomes different. They recognize that peaceful protests only cost and disrupt economies in the short term.
Yes.
It's like putting money into education. Putting more money into education disrupts your economy in the short term. But in the long term, you have more educated people who have higher paying jobs, who have more freedom of choice, less sickness, less burden on healthcare, etc. It's the same thing with peaceful protests. That in the short term, they are a disruptor. In the long term, they look at bigger problems, they fix areas of concern, they create more equity amongst the population, and they keep a country unified, which means that it stands in a better position globally.
And something to note here, if you doubt the idea that the main effect of protests and why they're so powerful is that they're a reminder of the potential of violence, look into the history of civil rights movements across the world, and what you will find is almost exclusively when actual change starts to occur is when peaceful protests reach a point of boiling anger from being ignored, that they start to become riots. And then history will write, yeah, the peaceful protests were so peaceful that the government said, we respect you and we're going to do it, because of course a government benefits from telling you not to be violent. And that makes sense. They are order. They are the system. So violence against the system is obviously something that is going to be pushed against. But if you look historically, the civil rights movement as peaceful protests was incredibly important for getting people on side. But it wasn't until riots and violence started to come of these protests being quelled and ignored that there was actual change. Because protests have only ever been effective as a reminder that violence still lingers, that it is still a possibility. Which brings us to a very important point. What is the actual reason?
Oh, wait.
What?
Can you hold that important point before you move on?
Okay, I was about to transition to our next part. Yeah.
So I think that something that I would like to point out here is this is a common political thought, but it's a political thought that my first poli-sci teacher would talk about it all the time in university. That power only comes through permission, and he would say that over and over again as a reminder that the government only has power because we give it permission to have power. That the government only has power over us and our actions if we fully submit. And so I think it's really important to remind the government in peaceful protests, for the sake of this philosophical idea, that this is a reminder to government that they have been given permission to have power and that permission can be taken back.
Exactly. You have been allotted permission to govern and rule, and we can take that permission away. And that makes sense because humans are an inherently hierarchical animal. This is actually something really fun this is one of my favorite biology facts. Okay. When people will tell you, you go to the dog park and someone will be like, the thing about dogs is they gotta know you're the alpha. That's actually true. Dogs have a concept of alpha. And then those guys will be like, cause they're wolves. No, that's actually not true. Wolves don't have alphas. Wolves who are taken and put in captivity who don't know each other will end up having an alpha because a pecking order is formed. But wolves don't have an inherently hierarchical society. But dogs do, because dogs have copied the social order of apes. Apes have hierarchy as part of their biological organization. Now, anarchist philosophers don't like that. But if you look at the biology of apes, humans included, we do like to have hierarchy. we tend towards it. It is an unfortunate fact that holds us back a little bit in a lot of ways, I think. But it also probably helps us organize, because if we all give permission for someone to have power over us, they can mobilize us. But that permission is rescindable. And if you look at apes in nature, that commonly happens, where an ape is leading the pack badly, and no matter how big and strong an ape is, 40 apes can overthrow an ape. That happens pretty commonly. It's actually one of the interesting things. Apes tend not to be like sea lions or elephant seals, where the alpha is the biggest, strongest male. The male who ends up being the alpha of ape groups is usually, they're usually stronger than average, but the more important trait tends to be emotional intelligence, which you'll recognize with humans. And I think it is so important to keep in mind exactly what you're talking about, that power is a permission that can be rescinded. And I genuinely think that's something we see through One Piece so goddamn often. How often do we see a leader who loses their authority because the people of the kingdom are no longer willing to submit and accept the governance they've been given?
Exactly. So that brings me to Socrates before we move into the next part.
Okay.
So Socrates, everyone hears the story of Socrates and understands that he chose to die, that he was arrested for his thinking. We won't get into the fact that a lot of his thinking and his work was because his teacher was a woman and she did this whole, we won't get into that right now.
Yeah.
But he was arrested for his thinking, for disturbing the peace is basically what he was arrested for. And because it was said that his ideas were creating in people too much distrust, questioning, etc., etc. And then his ideas were the idea that you can't prioritize peace above everything else, because if you prioritize peace, that means you're going to tolerate oppression, injustice, and tyranny rather than resisting oppression, injustice, and tyranny, because you prioritized peace as your goal. And then peace is maintained at the cost of justice, then breeds resentment and fear and revolt. And that's why you're then going to have wars. So Socrates had this discussion of justice in a well-ordered state. And now you had to live with the justice of a state, because it's the justice that you keep talking about and changing and questioning, which is why he chose to die. He knew that he was going to be poisoned. He knew that was his death thing. And he said, I will live with the justice of my country. Because he decided, rather than questioning it, he was going to make the populace question the justice by dying of that justice.
So, this is a great transition into why specifically peace as not a good goal is going to be the theme of Elbaph. Because there's so many reasons that peace doesn't work as a goal, only as a good outcome. Peace isn't bad, but it's bad as your objective. And this is for a simple fact. In all of these cases we brought up, there is something in common. And that is that within oppressive systems, peace is oppression. Peace is to side with the oppressor. If you are in a system that is already subjugating a group and your goal is peace, then your goal is to subjugate that group, to remove their rights and to keep them down. That is the common thread through all of this.
Yeah, 100%. Which is so cool, because you said it in a inflammatory way. What then Luffy would be, and then we had a whole conversation about what we actually see him as.
Yes. And I think more and more the theme of One Piece continues to be that what something is, what word fits it, depends on your perspective. And we're going to talk about that more and more. But yeah, the classic is Luffy a freedom fighter or a terrorist conversation that comes up, where my argument is genuinely, it just depends who's talking. Us, the readers, are always going to see him as a freedom fighter because we see that he's doing good. But of course, the people who are harmed by him are going to see him as a terrorist, because it is a word that doesn't actually reflect what you do any differently. And there's so many examples of why that's the case. the words only reflect whether or not you see those actions as just or not. But that's not the core of this. The core of this is about oppression.
No, but the core of it is built on that, because I was thinking
Okay.
about so I was thinking of peace as a goal.
Yes.
And I thought about the 20 kingdoms at the center of our conversation in one piece at all time.
Yeah.
And it becomes clear that those 20 kingdoms betrayed our entire world by aligning with celestial invaders because they wanted peace above justice. And because of that, they were willing to put up with the tyranny, with the injustice, and they allowed the world to become what it was because they just wanted peace so badly.
So peace in a state of oppression is oppression. We have a world in One Piece via the Celestial Dragons, where if peace is maintained, if that is the goal you have, is a lack of violence, you are effectively siding with the Celestial Dragons. You are siding with those who currently have power over the world and the freedom to do anything. Briefly, and I don't think this is going to make it into the video. I actually think this is interesting. There's soft oppression and hard oppression. That is sort of true as concepts, but I will say the line is more blurred than people would think. At the moment, and I think sadly this is fast changing, at the moment I would agree that most of the oppression in the United States is a soft oppression, but the reason I see those lines as so much more blurred than some might is because, yes, in theory, it is soft oppression, but the wealthy don't really get punished for anything they do. It is a system where if you are wealthy enough, like if you are part of the 1% in the United States, you are capable of effectively doing anything. If someone who's, it's been proven through the reveals we've had around figures like Epstein, that the 1% have been engaged in incredibly illegal activity, and generally, almost never is there justice faced for those actions. So yeah, it's like what we'd consider soft oppression, but that soft oppression still involves a class-based system where the people who are on top are able to do literally whatever they want. Literally, the laws don't apply to them. Do you want more evidence that they live under a different set of laws? Okay. School shooters are not marched by dozens of militantly armed police officers in a public press to show how bad they are. However, someone who kills a singular CEO is. No, not the same way as Luigi. Luigi Mangione was.
The Luigi thing was a whole other thing. But
that
let's
is
be honest, it's generally white male boys who end up school shooting. I mean, when I say generally, has there ever been a not?
Yeah, there's been a few. Some more Latin teens lately.
That nothing is made out of them. Also, the other thing, that I think is surprising is how many Americans don't know that the rest of the world doesn't have school shootings. Like, they think that it's a common thing. That always surprises me.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have school shootings, guys. We just don't. We just don't.
Well, there was a crazy kid at my school who filled a super soaker with gasoline and tried to flamethrower people. So it's not like not a school shooting. It's just also.
Was caught. Second of all, he wouldn't have done it, and third of all, we're talking about the difference between bringing an AK-47 and this dude whose super soaker leaked gas out on him and he ran away like a sad kid.
Yeah, my point though is that the law is applied differently for the wealthy. You kill 13 children, you're a criminal and you're killed. Fair. You kill one millionaire, billionaire, you are given the perp march by armed guards. If a poor person is engaging in human trafficking, they are found out, they will be arrested justly. That's a good thing. But if a wealthy person is, generally, they're able to get away with it and it will be slid aside and they will find one person that can be put down for it. Unfortunately, while I do agree with you that this is soft oppression still does involve a system where some people are under different laws than others, and that is an oppressive system. Now, whether or not that's oppression enough to justify revolutionary action is going to always be up to the civilization. You can't just write a thesis on whether or not something is enough to warrant overthrowing. That can only ever come from the people. Revolution in general can only come from the people. This was all for just stream. Like, this isn't in the YouTube video.
The piece of one now.
Um,
The one of peace.
I think we're ready to move into the One Piece part of this for sure.
That's what I just said. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just agreeing with you.
And the one of peace, and I'm saying, hell's yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. Okay, guys.
So
Here,
Drawk said, and I quote, Luffy is
no. We have
war.
one step before that, which is about Haruden.
What about Haruden?
Look at the order. We have something after the Piece of Suppression.
The order. You're out of order.
Then I'm going to do this part. Guys,
I'll
here's
do
my
it too.
evidence that this is why this will be the theme of Elbaph. Because we've talked a lot about this philosophically, but how does this actually apply to One Piece and prove that this is going to be a theme of Elbaph? Well, I have something very clear. Who is our point of view character? Okay? Our point of view character in Elbaph, our introduction, our guy, the guy on the inside, is Haruden. Haruden is someone who wants to be a warrior when he has been told not to. Colin is also an introduction, yes, who also wants to be a warrior, even though that isn't accepted. Colin and Haruden both seek to be a warrior despite the fact that the war is over. We have moved to peace and trade and negotiations. Now, allow me to explain something very cool, okay? Why is it that they can see the need for violence, but the others can't? Well, because the others are held in a sustained peace, protected by Shanks, and they feel they are in a situation where they can exist safely. So peace suits them because they are still in a position of power. Elbaph is oppressed. They are a second-class citizen. The world government does not invite them to the table. They are trading at a deficit because the Navy are who handles trade in the world. But the people of Elbaph overall are still safe. However, it is an oppressive society even though it is oppressed. Other ethnic groups of giants and humans are seen as lesser. Colin and Haruden are oppressed ethnicities in this country. And because of that, they can recognize oppression. Because of that, they can recognize that the status quo of peace is not a fair peace. It is not equitable. They are able
Which is very funny. It's so Japan. Like, if you think about current modern day Japan and Japan's feeling about peace and fighting and war, and how it will have people come into the country from other ethnic backgrounds who will be like, well, what about this, this, and this? In Japan, they'll be like, no, the whole goal is peace. Right now, the goal is peace. Well, they don't say right now. So it's a really funny look at a foreign person being in a place and saying, yeah, I've lived here forever. This is who I am. I understand, but you're wrong.
I think the lesson we are genuinely going to see is that this insistence on peace being the goal is to accept oppression. So we can see this in a lot of ways. King Harald, maybe he was good intentioned, maybe he was afraid of the world government and he just bowed, but he was allowing the world government to raise assassins with Mother Caramel on his island. He was allowing the world government to dictate their trade. We're trying to become part of the world at large, so we will exist by trade. Well, that's who's going to be in charge. I don't know if King Harald is going to have been bullied, if he's going to be misguided, or if he's going to be straight up evil. I genuinely lean towards evil, and he was getting a deal on the side. He was somehow benefiting from this and keeping people down. I'm not certain about that, but it is what my leaning is, because I think this is going to be about the fact that, yeah, you are oppressing the giants by holding them back and keeping them in the situation they're in.
Yeah. I had the same agreement as you, that I think that it was up until this point, we've been given signs of peace pressed against people who are fighting for themselves, and we don't see that as fighting. When it is mirrored to us, it's the same way when we talk about Luffy being a terrorist and it upsets people. We have been given opportunities to see people fighting back, not as war, but as fighting for their own peace and their own freedom. And so people don't think about that as war. But I just want to put something out there to highlight what you're talking about that I also think transitions into our next topic.
Yeah.
Every kingdom that Luffy has visited,
Mhm.
every one of them where he causes his problems was already in a state of peace.
The
And
only
when
exception I
Luffy
can
comes
think
in,
of is Alabasta, and otherwise, yes.
no, Alabasta, I would say, yes, was in a state of war that came from peace. We were shown that immediately. Like, immediately, we were shown what happens when you get so caught up in peace that somebody else is able to come into your area, take it over. We were also shown that with Arlong Park. So caught up in peace, not fighting back, just having a peaceful life, etc., etc., that somebody is able to come in, and the rest of them were all at peace. And then
Yep.
Luffy turned it
No.
into war.
Arlong Park was at peace also. There was no revolution. People paid their taxes. Every once in a while, if you
Arlong Park
didn't
was
pay
all
tax,
peace.
yeah, if you didn't pay taxes, the government had government punishment, which was Arlong was the government, but that was peace. That was Arlong's
But it's
peace.
peace. It's oppression, but it's peace.
It just because the populace craved revolution doesn't mean that it wasn't at peace, according to those who govern. Luffy,
Which
no,
is
I
why
disagree.
Drawk says, what?
Sorry, you go, and then I got to disagree with chat to guide us into the next segment.
Go ahead. Disagree with chat first.
Okay. Sinem, Luffy doesn't bring violence or peace. He goes in like a fool, makes people confront invisible violence that you're used to. First of all, I agree with the second part, that he makes people confront the invisible violence. And yes, absolutely, the idea that the violence of the state is not violence, that what the state does to you, what the government does to you is not violence, is a core theme. But I do think Luffy kind of objectively does bring violence. He brings what the state would define as violence at the very least. And I think philosophically, we can disagree and say, well, yeah, but he's actually just confronting the invisible violence that was already there. But he is doing so with incredibly visible violence, like dramatically visible violence. Think about how often Luffy has punched someone through the capital of a country. There's twice I can think of offhand, 3 times Wano. It was near the capital at least. He is constantly exposing invisible violence to incredibly visible violence.
But Luffy is never fighting for peace. Luffy is fighting for freedom.
Yeah.
And freedom only comes with justice.
But Angle Simp, I actually want to disagree with you. I understand that you would rather him, your name is Angle Simp, you would rather him institute a socialist structure. However, Luffy does change the governing structures of the countries he's in, because straight up, this is a thing I believe, okay? And I think Luffy believes it too. Conceptually, Luffy doesn't have political beliefs in terms of won't write a thesis about him, but it's how he acts. The way that he changes them is by putting someone in charge that the people have given their consent to follow. That is the change that Luffy applies to a country. The people of Wano consent to being ruled by Momonosuke. The people of Dressrosa consent to King Riku taking the throne again. Sure, he doesn't change the governing structure, but he does result in consenting leadership, which is a core tenet of a lot of anarchist philosophy and other political philosophy, that leadership that is consenting is preferred, is the only goal you can have. A lot of people theorize that the only reason democracies are better than monarchies on average is because there is an implicit consent. There is an implicit abiding by the structure, not just in terms of, and you're thinking, oh, because I voted. No. Voting is actually not the be all and end all of democracy. The fact that you vote at all means you are condoning this method of choosing a leader. The reason fascism is what it is because it is no longer a consenting system. By removing the ability to freely participate in the vote and restricting votes to the point that it isn't a meaningful structure, the symbolic power of the vote, the symbolic consent you give to the process, the symbolic consent you give to say, no matter who wins, I have accepted that outcome, that is the real governing power of democracy, is lost through fascism. And I think that is explicitly why Luffy is changing the governing of where he goes, because he leaves a place with consenting leadership.
except for something else to consider, and not except for, but also then something else to consider is even the people who created democracy always said the voting is just step one in a proper democracy. That holding the people accountable for whom you elected and gave permission is step two.
Yes.
And in societies as large as the ones that we have currently, the methodology of that holding accountable comes at peaceful protest. Nothing that is done online or as individual conversations is helpful. It is only when large groups of us come together to protest that we're able to have a voice heard, which is why protest is an act of balance, but it's also an act of democracy.
I think it's interesting to point out, because someone brought up how Dressrosa had a gaslighting piece, and that's true. And I think that ties into what I'm talking about, consenting governance, because in theory, people consented to Dressrosa, but philosophically, they couldn't consent to it because they didn't have the information. If your people are being secret policed away into toys and you don't know that, you aren't actually giving informed consent to your leadership, even if you're in theory consenting.
Showing all the different ways in which government and ruling powers can take over. You might not know who's actually in control. The world is really being controlled by 5 great nations. Da 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 da. I also would like to argue that Alabasta was also at peace. There
was a civil war happening. I'm disagreeing, but I will hear you out.
Hear me out.
I'm hearing you out.
Remember when we first got there, the country didn't know that number 1, Crocodile the rock star, was bad. And they were still supporting him. There was not a civil war on that ground until Luffy showed up with Vivi.
That is true. Now,
until that moment, it was a peaceful place that people thought Crocodile was the bomb.com.
There was about to be a civil war, but it was probably, without Luffy's intervention revealing what Crocodile had been doing, it was probably going to be a pretty swift civil war where there was just a coup of the king.
Reiterate that every place that Luffy showed up was in a quote-unquote state of peace.
I think that's true. There was about to be, but you were right that technically, by technicality, yes, every place there's one place that wasn't at peace when he showed up. There's one place that wasn't at peace when he showed up.
Vivi was number 7 or whatever. So it hadn't shown up at that point. And I would argue Orangetown too. There was a piece, you had to pay for it, you had to give money for it.
Orangetown was Buggy had destroyed everything.
Oh, right. That is a pirate moment on the
That's a pirate moment. That's not the governing. But that is a weird exception, but it's so early that it's understandable that Oda wasn't in his cooking yet.
Also, I think that's really important because the pirate thing is supposed to be seen different throughout here because it brings a type of chaos that's taking advantage of a world at peace.
So Skypiea is interesting because it in theory wasn't completely at peace, but it kind of was. There was the skirmishing revolutionary forces of a people who had been oppressed, held back, whose sacred land had been taken, and who were trying to, with extreme violence, even to civilians, get it back. However, they were more or less kept completely at bay by the military power of Eneru, the god of Skypiea. Now, he had overthrown it and taken over, and the peace was only held by the oppressive strength he held, but it was peace.
There was still peace.
It was
Nobody
segregationist.
Was fighting together.
Yeah.
It isn't a world without peace until people are actively fighting against each other, and nobody was actively fighting against each other in Skypiea.
Yeah. The Shandians were trying.
The Shandians had been fighting since day 1. They had been held back and held aside and treated as not even real people.
Yeah.
And so until all the fractions are fighting, then that's still quote unquote peace.
And I actually, to highlight that point in a way that I think is really important, Luffy didn't visit the Shandians in their camps where they had been segregated to. Exactly. He only visited Skypiea. The wars, there were skirmishes, but the war never reached the Skypians, who had taken the sacred land of the Shandians. It only reached the borders of their camps. So yeah, Luffy did bring violence to the place he went because he didn't go to the Shandians village. So I'm gonna just straight up say everything before Arlong Park fits this a little bit less well. I genuinely think
not that it fits it less well. That's just when we're collecting people.
I think earlier on Oda's goals were different, and I think his writing style was different. Because I've been thinking a lot about the East Blue arcs.
That he considers the story to start once he has Zoro, Luffy, Usopp, and Nami together. He said in the colored book I have, that's when he considers his story starting.
Okay, so everything before that, he kind of sees as prologue, which makes sense because Arlong Park is the first place that this kind of applies to. I mean, granted, it actually does also apply to, I forget the name of it, Shelltown.
Yeah, I think
Shelltown was also at peace and he brought violence. It was funded entirely by the people. Interesting. So it didn't have the world government. I didn't realize that. Yeah, exactly. Shandians were fighting, but Skypiea itself was at peace. Yes, exactly. Well, chapter 100 is literally called End of Prologue now. Yeah, that is true. What about Syrup Village? Again, the early stuff is a little bit weird. Technically, it was at peace. It's just like, did Luffy bring violence? Not really, but he did. It showed up after he did. The big arcs are kind of more what matters and more what we're talking about, and Luffy is bringing violence to those places. Drum Island, someone pointed out, and that's an interesting one because they had already done their revolution. So, well, not really. Blackbeard just chased Wapple away and he got scared, but they had started to self-govern and realized they didn't need Wapple, and Luffy helped them maintain their self-governance they'd had. He helped them continue to be a consenting governance, which is, I think, really important.
Yeah, so moving on from that.
Well, I think that's where we just say the explicit thing you were trying to say earlier, which is because of this, Luffy is. Do you want to do this part because you were doing this earlier?
No, you're the one who first said it, buddy, and I said that it was a bit. Over the top.
Okay, I'm sticking by it. I believe this. You ready, guys? I'm not going to say Luffy's a terrorist. Don't worry, guys. Luffy is war. The entire arc of Elbaph, we're having this dilemma brought up of, is the sun god a war god or a god of freedom and liberation? And I'm here to tell you that whether liberation is war or liberation entirely depends on your perspective. It is the exact same as the terrorist discussion. War and freedom are one and the same. If you are an oppressed person, if you are held down by the system, your rights are taken, then you see this as liberatory. You see this as liberation. If you are on the side of the oppressor, then it is war. It is terror. It is unnecessary bloodshed and violence. If you are Doflamingo, Luffy brought war. He broke your cities. He destroyed your men. He crushed their bones. He created an uprising of your peasant class. If you are the toys, Luffy brought liberation. He saw oppression and fought for your freedoms and rights. If you are Kaido, Luffy brought war. And you like that because you're Kaido. You think war is awesome and it made your house party a lot better. And you're like, having a great night, kid. Thanks. But you still see it as war. You just like war because you're Kaido. If you are Big Mom, you see what he did as an act of war. He snuck into your land, stole your shit. If you are Caesar Clown, he brought war. If you are, well, not Crocodile, because you were also bringing war. I guess you both brought war. If he's Crocodile, he brought war to the war fight. That one's a little weird. If you're Wapple, he brought war. Luffy brings war. He shows up.
I said something else, but similar but different.
Yes. You go into yours now.
I see Luffy as being a catalyst. I see Luffy is the spark, but he is not peace. He is not just for freedom. I think Luffy is the thing that will ignite whatever the rumblings are, whatever peaceful protest was not allowed, whatever animosity, fear, holding down has happened. Luffy is the spark that ignites. And so does he ignite war a lot? Yeah. He also ignites personal freedom, sticking up for oneself, etc. I think saying that Luffy is a war god is more accurate than saying he's a god of peace. I would agree. You have to add a Bellamy. But I would also say that Luffy is the spark of freedom. And the spark of freedom often comes with war.
Yes, I fully agree. And I think we wouldn't see it as war. And that's just because we're on Luffy's side. But if you're not, you do. And I've done
You
it.
have to add
Pondaman
Pandaman.
too? Now, I think this brings us to an interesting place because I
Oh,
think
thank you, Monomon. I was going to go there later. Spark, do you mean a flame or a sun? You bet I do. I was going to go
because
into that later.
I
and
think
still will.
this puts us in a really interesting place with two characters, okay? And I wasn't thinking about this earlier. This is a thing that I've just realized based off what you were saying. You ready? You ready for the realization?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh yeah, ringing the bell in Marineford is absolutely a declaration of war. So is shooting the flag of the world government. And those are
100%.
both declarations of war from war god Luffy.
I think that Luffy, in his need to be the spark of liberation, the sun god, the thing that brings the light to the world, that light often comes in the form of war. So sometimes it's just blatant war. Sometimes it is a fighting within the crew and a revealing of a history with Robin, like when we were on Long Ring Longland. And the miniature fight in the Davy Bag. It looks different everywhere he goes, but he is always the spark. He is always ignited.
Now, I think there's two characters who are so interesting to this, which are Kaido and Loki. Why do I think they're interesting? Well, people asked for so long, Mama has to be wrong. How does Kaido think he was Joy Boy? How does... Okay, I mean, I can do that, sure. You know what? Fuck it. Fuck it. I'll delete my art. Yeah. I don't have enough time to finish it the way I was gonna. We're gonna do something new.
Oh my god.
People for a long time were like, how could Kaido think that he was Joy Boy, a figure of liberation and freedom? Well, Joy Boy was also supposed to be the god of war. He was also supposed to be war itself. Now,
exactly.
My thinking is that Kaido and Loki are similar in a sense. They're similar in the sense that because oh god, this is how to phrase it. Yeah, because Joy Boy was a war god and a god of liberation, and there's disagreement, they saw that war would be liberatory, that they would represent war and conquest, and liberation would come from that. And the opposite is meant to be true, that your goal shouldn't be war just because war is necessary for liberation. Your goal should be liberation, and war should be inevitable as the fallout of liberation. That they were attempting the same issue that we are seeing from Harold and the world government, but from the opposite perspective. Peace should come through liberation. War should come through liberation. However, you shouldn't make either war or peace your goal just because liberation, the act of liberating, will cause war, and liberation, the result of liberation, will cause peace. Just because those are true does not mean that peace and war are good and valid goals. And Luffy is meant to teach this lesson, that liberation is the goal that will inevitably lead to those outcomes.
It's even more than that. One of the reasons that when you first were having this conversation that I was like 100% and we should go into that is so many times people don't see what's coming. People choose peace and living a life that's going to have less conflict in it for their children. Okay, I'm going to say a thing people aren't going to like and I'm going to love. Children are a massive issue because they will make you complacent. And by complacent, lots of people think, oh, if you have kids, you're going to fight for what's right. No, you're not. You're going to listen to what people tell you to do because you want the best for your kids and you don't want them to be focused on. You're going to keep the job that you have rather than striving for another one because your kids need health insurance, especially if you're in the United States and your health insurance is golden handcuffing you to your job. You're going to not go out and fight for what's right because you can't die because you have to protect your kids. And that's why often you wait too long to fight for peace. What people don't realize is sometimes people fight too late. It is about timing, and sometimes you don't make it. I had a friend that I made when I was in the United States whose parents came over from Iran. She said they waited until almost the wrong time and they were almost stuck in a huge fight. She said, I could have been a person who had grown up under a very different rule and a very different life because my parents almost waited too long, but the populace did wait too long. And by the time they decided to fight back, it was too late. And so she said, in the United States, in the current conflicts and political thing, that every morning now she wakes up and stands on her balcony and says, "Are we too late to fight? Do I need to flee this country?"
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's one of the other things that Luffy does, is he's the one who comes in even when people have waited too long. He's like a freaking miracle spark because sometimes the people have waited too long. You cannot tell me the people of Dressrosa didn't wait too long, but it was hidden from them.
Yeah,
So they didn't understand what they were
didn't
waiting
realize.
from.
The oppression was hidden.
But it was too late, but Luffy revealed and managed to pull them together. And so Luffy is hopeful. Luffy is the god of liberation and freedom because even when it should be too late, even when we have gone over the line, when people can't fight back because they've allowed their government to hold too much power and sway over their lives, Luffy comes in and ignites what should be dead. And so Luffy in himself becomes this redemption miracle for everyone in this story, where he says, yes, it's gone on for 800 years. Yes, some of you have been oppressed in different ways and things are hidden from you, but I am the ultimate light in the ultimate dark.
I love that. That's such a good phrase. There's also the talk about Dressrosa here makes me think about something, again, not for the YouTube video. I remember someone saying that Franco is not a good analogy for Dofi because while Franco was a fascist, blah, 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 a lot of it was necessary, blah, blah, blah. And the more I've looked into Franco, a lot of the public records are misleading, and a lot of the worst things he did were kept so well secret that nowadays they're basically just folk stories that are being shared family to family by the people who were directly secret policed or taken by Franco, which makes me feel like Dofi is even more a great representation of Franco or Mussolini, who very similar facts are
100%.
true about, because those are figures who many reasonable people still see very highly despite being reasonable because, yeah, the oppression was hidden and it still largely is. You still largely, to know the worst of what Franco and Mussolini did, need to directly talk to the family members of those who were harmed by them, because the public narrative around them was never really altered and never really came to light.
And you can go smaller than that. You can go indigenous people across North America and other places that have been taken over. We have all this generations of people who are excited about the idea of Moana. And Moana tells one story within there about the Wayfarers. And the Wayfarers were people who could sail around the world. They were one little group. They only let in one member being trained by one wayfarer. They knew exactly where they were on a wide ocean with just by the sea currents, the smell, the things that were growing in it, the fish that were there, etc. All of that information was lost to time because it was hidden by colonizers and taken away. It was almost completely annihilated. There is only a few people who knew where the wayfarers were. You can look at the clam gardens we have here on our coasts and all the indigenous technological work that went into there, and yet nobody knew about them except for one man who had been kept out of residential school, whose grandmother used to have him tend to it. It was in his 90s. So there's so many times and places where, just like inside of One Piece, information is hidden from you. You don't even know what you don't know because our entire world is covered by void century moments. There are things you will never know are missing because they will be hidden from you in eternity because colonization made them disappear.
Now, I want to briefly say something here that's a response to chat. And I need to make it clear that I am very much a believer that Twitch's terms of service are really good and based and actually cool. So what I am saying applies only to strictly the most peaceful protest possible, being a good and orderly citizen who obeys every law because law is inherently ethical. I fully believe what I am saying, where someone said, God, I wish Luffy was real. And I need to tell you something. Luffy is real. Luffy might be you and he might not be, but Luffy only succeeds in what he does and it can only take on what he does because of what I said earlier, because he has the will of the people, because he is creating consenting governance, consenting leadership that at no point is giving up the best option, that the most oppressive governments in the world would easily, and I mean literally incredibly easily, overthrown by their populace. The CCP is so powerful and controls every part of their society, and if every person in China was fed up, Xi Jinping would be dead in minutes. Every country in the world bows to, oh, the clothes should be white. You're right. That is how Nika works. That's how, except for the sash. Every country in the world has to bow to the will of the masses. If you are ever thinking about giving up, don't. Let that spark of believing in a better world feed you and do everything you can. Because if the option is to give up on living the life you want anyways, why would you not do every peaceful option you possibly can take to preserve the society you want to live in, to protect the culture you care about and your home?
Because remember, peace under oppression is stagnation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so bringing it into One Piece again, something that I thought was really, really important because it kind of looks at our world too, is that the world government tells people what? That it maintains the peace.
Yes.
The world government of One Piece, their literal whole fighting thing is that they are justice. They fight for peace. But peace in their hands means absolute total submission to celestial rule. And so if peace in that way, and if anyone attempts to break free, Lelusia, Void Century, Warlord system, if anyone attempts to break free, they bring the death, war, and destruction to them.
Mm-hmm.
They are fighting for peace, but they are fighting for peace through oppression.
Yep.
And so One Piece is, they literally show you in this that peace is a system that is evil, that fighting for the sake of peace is fighting for the sake of oppression. And he's been telling us that all along.
And it's kind of crazy that it really did take Elbaph for me to realize this, that it took me going, what the fuck? Why are we seeing our point of view characters as warriors in a place that's turned to peace? Because I've been baked in the same propaganda soup as the rest of y'all. And I am like, peace is good. We should be peaceful and kind. Peace is good. And I'm going, why is Colin wanting to be a warrior? Why is Haruden wanting to be a warrior? Why are we seeing it as a possibly the bad state of the kingdom is that things are chill and peaceful? Well, it's because the king said we'll be peace and trade with other nations. Well, trade in this world is only done by the whims of the world government or the black market. Those are the only two groups that are capable of trading around the world. And if his goal is to become a peaceful trade nation, that means bowing down to the whims of power. That means bowing down to the groups who oppress Elbaph. That is not favorable peace. That is not a good peace.
Which means that his goal isn't to maintain order, but return to freedom or a free state.
So this is actually interesting. Lucia Steele is saying that our discussion on Whole Cake Island is what made them have this realization, which is interesting because I absolutely had a similar, both of us had a similar revelation during Whole Cake, but we didn't apply it to the broader series until now in the same way.
And we didn't think to take the Whole Cake conversation out to the larger land of One Piece.
Yeah.
Which is funny. Keep saying over and over again how many times that Oda will show us a smaller version of a larger thing he's talking about. Like he's trying to get our attention and being like, if I make this really obvious in this small version, will you see that it's also in the bigger picture you've lost sight of?
And it turns out the answer is not always yes.
And probably no.
I mean, think about how recently we started talking about the idea that Mads are probably meant to teach us about the Void Century.
Yes, and that's kind of sad.
It's easy to miss stuff, isn't it?
And then when we started talking about this, and you were like, okay, Mama, you research in this way, you go historical and philosophical, I'm going to go in this way. And then when I started doing this, I was like, dear shit, it's here all along. It's everything.
I think I don't know if this is a worthwhile conversation topic for the YouTube video, but I do want to say this whole idea of peace or war and liberation being one and the same, of peace and depression being one and the same, depending on who you are. That is absolutely going to tie into deities. I'm telling you guys that gods and demons are one and the same in One Piece, and that's why the celestial dragons all have demonic powers and yet call themselves gods. It's because there is going to be no distinction between what a god is and what a demon is. I am fully committed to that idea because One Piece has become, in my mind, entirely about the idea that your perspective shapes what a word means.
I agree.
Purple sash.
And I
Does
really,
it have to be?
I
Okay.
really,
Well, if it has to be.
it is a purple sash.
But
I
does
really
do
agree
we know
with
Joy
it.
Boy it has to be? The sash just doesn't change color is the thing. All right. I'm hoping I can
It's
pull this through because this is a delete your art I don't feel like I'm recovering from, but we'll see. If I lean into it, if I keep going, we might get there.
So something that I think is really important to pull back in, because we're trying to make this a One Piece discussion.
Yeah, Lav is going to have to edit out so much of what we've said to keep it trimmed to One Piece,
Yes.
at least partially.
Yes. So that it kind of flows a little bit. So one of the things that I think it's really important to say is that, like, in real life especially, we should know, but we don't, that sometimes it can be too late. If you let people oppress you for long enough, they say in creating a fascist regime that it takes 1 year to fully eradicate a populace's ability to fight back, because now it would take so much work because you've taken away their means of communication, their means of movement, and a bunch of other things. And once you regulate people's movement and their voice, etc., it becomes really easy to keep them oppressed. And it would require a larger thing outside to push that. When I think about that, and I think about it in One Piece, about how the celestial dragons sit on top of the world, they have an imposed peace. And it ensures obedience, not justice, which you can see all over the world. When it ensures peace is happening for the sake of somebody else, to line their pockets, to give them more power, to keep them laying down. You can see this because peace under the celestial dragons is oppression across the world, and the government and the army enforces it. And so, if for me, when we were looking at this and we realized that they call it stability, and they say it over and over again, the world government is the name of stability. And we will keep everything stable for you, so you continue to watch your great things on TV. You can be the person in the great little movie about the letter that you wanted to send to Nami, who has hopes and dreams. All of that continue to go as long as you 100% give the celestial dragons all of your extra money, time, energy belongs to them, period. And the world government will fight to make sure that continues. You live in quote unquote peace. And so he created the most sneaky character in the entire world, who looks like he is just faffing through this entire planet, not with a care in his mind, with emptiness beside his head, and his ultimate form is laughter. And yet what he is actually doing is highlighting the oppression within the quote unquote peace. And so then you go back to the idea of One Piece, and you wonder if there's two ways of saying that word. If he is talking about a one piece across the world, where he is revealing the fakeness of the peace and bringing freedom, and freedom is actual peace, to protest the things that upset you, that hurt others. And One Piece in that we are all united in our thinking and understanding that we all deserve to have our individual lives, worries. We all deserve to say when something isn't right and not be manipulated, controlled, turned into giants, have our children taken. That all of these things are examples of not having true freedom, and a lack of freedom is a lack of peace. And so Luffy is such a well-hidden character that he hides him behind the thing that is most important in the world, joy. Because you can't have joy unless you have freedom.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Okay. I want to now try to do something else here. Okay. Which is
Giver.
I don't know if this will make it in the YouTube video because we'll have to come up with a good conclusion, but I want to try our best because we've tackled the hidden theme of Elbaph that hasn't been spoken to us yet. That is just being hinted at. What we haven't done is talk about the obvious theme because that's not a prediction. But I want to see, can we figure out how do we think the best way of tying the theme of imagination and children's beliefs in
Can you wait
with
3
this
seconds?
idea
I
of
have to
peace as
open the
oppression?
dishwasher for that. Make me fall back. I'm here. Did you go away?
No, I'm right here. I just looked to check my phone quick because you were gone.
The machines win again. Papa Drawk comes in here, gives me the signal. I turn off the thing, and he's like, "The dishwasher is on. I put your new things in it. They're not allowed to dry in the heated dishwasher. Set a timer." I set the timer wrong, folks.
All right. So,
Yeah, give it.
I have no idea. Where do we start with this? Because I just want to try to figure this out. I want to see what we can do because I think we're so right about this, but very obviously, a child's imagination, what people believe in, what they fear. These are themes of Elbaph too that we're being kind of bludgeoned with right now. Like they're being put more forward.
You know what I keep thinking about on the first level, just on level 1 of this child thing?
Yeah.
As a person who works with the childs.
Yeah.
Something that's really interesting about something that is really interesting about children is that they are able to articulate easily when something isn't fair. Fairness is their universe. And as adults, we grow up realizing sometimes shit won't be fair. So we got to work on a greater good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I started to think about how children are kind of an ultimate litmus test of truth and fairness, and that a child's dreams could be to be anything they want. I want to be a fireman. I want to be a cop. I want to be a soldier or a ballerina. They're the ones who can notice things. This thing that they're doing is super unfair. They're hurting this person. This shouldn't happen. You shouldn't get to have this, do these things and then have this person be upset. And it's really interesting that he chose children in this way, because the children are people who aren't going to be easily suppressed in the same way. Like oftentimes it was really difficult to teach children who were, especially the smaller they are, to hide. If you were hiding from Nazis or hiding from in any war, when we've had to hide people, which is over and over again, because they didn't understand what it looked like to be suppressed and to have their joy tamped down. And that's the reason why when we want to show depression or hatefulness or the bad things of war, we often show children being subdued like adults. And so I think it's a really interesting thing that he has children being at the top of this, because children are the ultimate expression of joy.
Part of what I would tie in as well is thinking about what all the children fear. Children are kind of a way to show instruction because children believe what they're told a lot of the time. They haven't had enough experience to do more than reflect what they're told is the way of the world, which to me ties into these are the things they think. These are what they think are the scariest things because all they know of the world is what they've been told by adults. I don't know. It's tough, right?
I agree. There's a whole bunch of things about children that are supposed to also be represented in Luffy, because Luffy is this version of not growing up in believing that we watch him change as a leader 100%. We've talked about that over and over again, but he still has this ability to be so young.
This ties into something interesting.
So focused on fairness and so focused on right and wrong and joy. Yeah, he is a Peter Pan. He really is. That's true.
So something interesting that kind of ties into, I'm realizing, Luffy's dream that we don't know might come up this arc. His dream is something he's had since he was a child, right? It's a
and I
childlike
think
dream, and it's the same as
it's gonna be
Roger's.
something about a big party thing.
But is there a chance it'll tie into the other theme, the theme of peace not necessarily being, or maybe his goal would be world peace? Like, and that's the contradiction, and that's the idea of like
I
peace
don't know
being
why
obtained
people
through
would laugh
violence.
at a dream of world peace,
No, people wouldn't laugh at it. That's the issue. I think his dream
That's
might be
what I was
revealed this
thinking
arc,
of.
though, thinking about the idea that children's dreams are such a part of it. Oh, this is so tough.
Yes, and this was his childhood dream.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
agree. I
man.
had the same thought. I was like, children's dreams. Well, what about Luffy's dream?
Yep. Oh,
What is
man, this
Luffy's
is
dream
tough.
coming true? I think part of it would be uniting the whole world in something, which is going to mean the getting rid of the red line. And the red line is a symbol of that hatred and power. So I think that's really important. It's more than symbolic, but it is a symbol.
This is really tough. This is really tough.
Are you trying to get this picture done in time?
I mean, I'm trying to. I'd like to. We're coming around. Okay. The last thing we wanted to talk about today. Oh, actually, this ties into another thing we want to talk about. We can move to. I think we can move on from the
You
theme of
mean
children's
before we
dreams.
go into our third world, which is going to
Well,
tie into this? Like,
yes.
because of all the work we did here this week, boom.
So here's where I'm at. The next thing we were looking at is those who seek peace without strength will be ruled by those who don't care about peace. You mentioned this earlier, but I think we
No,
see.
say it slower because it's a thing that I thought was really important.
Those who seek peace without strength will be ruled by those who do not care about peace. I think this is essential to a ton of it. No, Ozzy. It's all good. We're going to come around. You just got to lean into you just got to turn into the skid. That's all. I think this is going to be incredibly relevant, and I think we see it constantly. The need for strength, and I genuinely think it's going to be a problem for Elbaph that they have allowed themselves to lose their warrior culture, that they have allowed themselves to hunker under the protection of others. That I think Loki is going to be a necessary figure, and that's why he's saying, hey, I need my strength back. If you want to save Elbaph, uncuff me. I genuinely believe he's not saying, I'll destroy Elbaph if you don't uncuff me. I genuinely think he is saying, I can't save Elbaph if you don't uncuff me. I just think also he's too much of a bastard to phrase it that way, because I think he doesn't want to be seen that way. I think he got image problems.
I think beyond image problems as well is there are wartime leaders and there are peacetime leaders. Like, I don't think anyone in England would disagree that as far as peacetime leadership, Churchill, not a banger. But
well, I think tons of people in England would disagree with that because they don't look into what Churchill was like in peacetime. Just a sec, my monitor stopped working for drawing.
Anyone who had done any research would be like, Churchill not a banger in the peace times. But anyone who was from England and knew the history would say he is definitely a wartime leader. Like, if you want to look at a wartime leader, it's Churchill. Congratulations, you found a wartime leader. And we talked about Canada, and we said that honestly, as far as peacetime and problem time leadership goes, we both think Trudeau is a really good example of strifed leadership, whether that be wartime or whether that be just difficult time. That
trade conflict. He tends to make good decisions in crisis, even though I got some problems with my boy Trudeau a little bit.
Well, if you don't have problems with your leadership, then you're a cult member.
Honestly, yeah. There should be no one you aren't capable of criticizing. If you can't criticize them, either you're in a cult or somehow your leadership has the exact same political sensibilities as you, the individual, and that's insane.
No, that is not good. That is a real bad thing. I would say that Trudeau has shown himself, from everything from COVID to the difficulties with other nations, blah, 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 over and over again, to be a really good leader in times of crisis.
And then also did some pretty corrupt shit. We're talking about Trudeau Jr. Trudeau Sr. is before my time. I ain't remember the guy.
I remember the guy, but I was a baby.
Tragic. What a curse.
Wasn't
Or the one in
tragic. I
charge,
like
also
being a
true.
baby, I think. I think I really enjoyed it. From everything I hear. From everything I hear, I really enjoyed babyhood.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on Carney? Briefly, my thoughts on Carney are I am very glad he's intelligent enough that he has clearly done a lot of courses on public speaking in the last year or so, because he was
Oh God,
from
yes.
from what I've seen in the past, he was a very uncharismatic speaker, and I think we are in times of populism where you can't just sound like you represent the system. You need to sound charismatic to win, and I think Polivier is such a good speaker that there is no world where Carney could beat him if it wasn't for all the work he's done.
PP up in this house?
Look, Polivier is not good. He's a great speaker. Are you going to tell me he's not?
No, but I am going to tell you to call him PP.
Okay. Anyways, my thoughts on Carney are, from what I've seen, he's said a lot of racist shits about Native people. That's pretty bad, but he's a very competent economist, and that is probably the best thing Canada could have at the helm at this exact moment. So I'm not going to vote for him because
he will make our conservatives very happy, and he will also make sure that he keeps a hard line with Trump.
Yeah, I think he is probably good. He's got problems. Everybody's got problems.
I think there's a lot about Trudeau that was good. I think there's a lot of Trudeau that was bad.
People don't know a lot of the good shit he did.
People just like not liking people. It's fun.
Yeah. People don't know this. Trudeau actually put in a ton of work to improve Canada's internet infrastructure to create subsidized data plans for rural Canadians, because Canada is such a spread out country that actually making cable internet to a lot of rural people is kind of impossible. And cellular data is so expensive in Canada because of how few cell towers there are. And how expensive it is to build cell towers for so few people. I mean, so Trudeau created subsidized plans where the government helped cover the cost for home data plans to give cellular internet to rural Canadians, because in the modern era, it's a disadvantage to not have access to the internet. And I think that's a really good initiative.
And on the internet, there is One Piece.
Okay, we'll get back to it. Someone asked about Canadian politics.
So
there is. Don't worry about that.
It's really important to remember that you need to be able to have these discourses, and that's what we're talking about. When we talk about One Piece, we're talking about this type of discourse. And this type of discourse is what's missing in One Piece's world, and it's why we believe that peace shouldn't be the goal. Because peace is just covering up the lack of ability to have political conversations, to disagree, to have your opinions. And so I think that's what he's showing us. These conversations don't exist in One Piece for a reason.
All right. What's next?
Because they're boring to people who are reading a manga.
What? Hey, Drawk needs to meet his CanCon? What's CanCon? What's happening?
What? I don't know.
I don't know, EA Killer. I think you're making a joke that I don't know the reference. I think it's tragically.
It's like the cake. It's a lie.
Okay. The last thing we wanted to talk about. Oh, thank you, Tavian. That's incredible. Thank you for all the gifted subs.
Well, thank you, Tavian.
The last thing we wanted to talk about. This is important. What we think the final battle is going to look like.
We're going into third world now.
Well, the last thing we want to talk about for this video.
Yeah.
What the third world is going to look. Maybe I can finish this drawing while we talk about the third world.
We're doing that in the third world right now.
Yes. So, but the final battle is something we want to talk about here as well, because we want to talk about the fact that it's not a battle for peace.
No, I think it's a battle that's supposed to bring us back into alignment to give freedom and power back to some people who had freedom and power prior to the invasion.
Mm-hmm. Prior to Marie Joie being taken over.
I have new theories on that.
But basically, Ozzy Lelowin also getting 5 subs. Jesus. Do I think Blackbeard or Emu will be the final villain? I got a cop-out answer.
Oh, gross.
Well, I think Emu and Blackbeard are supposed to be one and the same, just the same figure, the same motivations on a different cycle. That they... No. Well, but come on, do you think I'm wrong?
Boo!
You think I'm wrong?
Maybe.
Okay, well, good for you. I do think because of that, I kind of think it's going to be Blackbeard because I think he's going to be able to step in as at the defeat of Emu. But yeah, I think it'll be sort of both of them, sort of probably Blackbeard at the last minute, because that's the deal. That's the guy. That's the man.
I think Emu is going to be our final boss. I think Blackbeard is going to show up before then, and we're going to have some very Blackbeardian moments. I
Well,
even think Blackbeard is going to destroy himself.
I could see it. I think here's why I think it, because I look at the mural and I see it being that Emu was like, "Hey, Joy Boy, I'll help you defeat the people who rule the world," and then Emu betrayed that mission and took over. I think Blackbeard is going to help us beat Emu.
I think maybe, but I think he's going to do it at the ultimate destruction of himself.
Interesting. We'll have to see.
I feel like
Okay.
I've got a pulse on this in a weird way that I can't explain, but I feel like we're going to sing Bye Bye Blackbeard.
Okay. I think because of the legend of how Blackbeard died, he is going to be our first canonical drowning of a devil fruit user, especially because he's put all of his eggs in the devil fruit basket.
I really like it when you say all of his eggs in a devil fruit basket. I'm not gonna
That's
lie
his
to
whole
you.
deal. He's like, I got all the fruits.
Also, we're gonna have to have that Blackbeard thing, that whole problem with Blackbeard,
Yeah.
Blackbeard, come out. Like, what the shit is up with him? Why is he able to have more than one fruit? That shit's gonna have to like really come out.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I
There's
think is
two
gonna help
fruits
us
in
in the
confess.
destruction of Blackbeard moment.
All right. How do we want to close this off? Because I want to leave this on a button, on like a punchy little pithy thing we can kind of close out on as like, hey, here's our final statement on this.
You So what you're saying is our problem is we can't leave until we're pithy?
Yeah, we got well, we gotta have like a closing thing. We gotta have like a thing we say, some way to YouTube videos, we have this whole thing. We should end.
Okay. I think that Luffy
We wrote an essay outline and we don't have a conclusion. That's funny.
I think that Luffy is not fighting for peace, but that he is hoping that by returning the world to balance, that the world will find a new type of peace that is natural, because he understands that peace happens as a consequence of people being truly free.
I think more and more I'm realizing, and chat kind of made me put it in these words, that Luffy sees the invisible violence of oppression, that he, unlike most people, doesn't see the justification of, well, it's the system doing it, so it's okay. So he is out here ending the invisible violence, bringing it forwards, and physically punching it. And that he's a force of seeking a true justice and fighting against. It kind of means he is fighting for peace because he is fighting the invisible violences. He's fighting the lack of peace that is somehow allowed and called peace. And yeah, I think I agree that he's trying to, that his goal, his ending is liberating the world, is creating a true and lasting peace through justice, a real peace.
You just reiterated what I said. I had the
Yeah.
great end line, and you just reiterated it.
Okay, well,
You killed my
think,
moment.
okay, fucking whatever. Should we end on a Martin Luther King quote?
It depends. Are you gonna give me a lame Martin Luther King quote or a great one?
Well, I kind of forgot to bring up the one I wanted to mention when we were talking about Elbaph.
How about we each end on a Martin Luther King quote?
I'm actually going to bring
honor
something.
of the United States, which is trying to fight its own battles right now. Why don't we each end on a Martin Luther King
Instead
quote?
of Martin Luther King quote, I'm actually going to, there's a quote that I wanted to bring up from, I mentioned this at the beginning. If you weren't here, you missed this. A lot of the research I did for this in preparation was reading The Ways of Peace by Gray Cox. That's his name.
Okay, well, that's a great name.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Gray Cox.
Just stop.
Yeah. We should not, this is from the preface, second paragraph of the preface of Ways of Peace. We should not blindly prefer peace at any price, especially if it is the kind of peace which may require us to accept injustice and oppression in order to avoid conflict and violence. But there are many kinds of peace besides this sort which people suffer when they have been pacified. We can conceive of peace in many different ways, and these differences are related to a variety of assumptions and practices we adopt in our culture. That to me feels so in line with the philosophy of One Piece, that the way to arrive at this greater peace is to actually confront the ways we're framing the world, the ways we're seeing things. And I think this is only going to feel more and more appropriate to the series as we go.
Okay, and I'll end on this quote. Peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek. It is the means to which we arrive at that goal.
That is good. That really fits. Hell yeah.
Hells yeah.
Hell yeah. Something tells me MLK was used as an inspiration for One Piece, guys.
Could be, man. Could be. Genghis Khan quote of the day: I am the punishment of God. If you have not committed great sins, God would not have sent you to punish me like he has. Genghis Khan was mid in comparison to his daughters, who actually were the true rulers of awesomeness.
Just, you know, like,
Okay.
you know. Okay.
They
cool.
really ruled much larger kingdoms than he did. I don't know what to tell you. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. We need to do our closing pieces.
We do. Well, do we do closing segments for this kind of video? I think it just fades to song.
But that's weird.
I mean, the thing that's oh yeah,
I'm
for
going to
YouTube.
thank the squishies.
Hey,
Thank you,
we need to
squishies.
thank the Patreon. Yeah, we need to thank the squishies.
Yeah, like what do you think I'm doing right now? I'm ignoring you.
God, you're so right. You do it.
Okay.
Oh, and the prediction. I think my feeling about Loki, I think he is good guy with the caveat of like he's very misguided at the moment. Where is your leaning? Because we made that the prediction. So let's do that before we.
What's the prediction so I know what I'm talking about?
Do we think Loki is a good guy with caveats, a straight up bad guy, or is he a bad guy with a heart of gold? Because we think those are the most likely options.
I think
because I'm feeling good guy with caveats.
It's impossible for me to say that a person was just put in there because his dad was like, "We're now going for peace. Loki is the worst, and he's unpeaceful." He had to do some bad shit.
Yes, but I still feel like his intentions are good, especially because we see him fighting in the mirror.
I am leaning to he is good more than bad. Is why does dark red hair Shanks want to kill him otherwise?
All right, and he refused to join the world government when offered.
So I just think it's weird that you would have bad Shanks trying to kill somebody who was actually good.
All right, we're saying good guy with caveats. That is the winner of the poll. Okay, now you grab a squishy to thank. You thank one of them squishos.
Well, first I want to thank our whole crew: Dark Okira, Draco Meme, Dr. Jack, big honkin' squishies of honkin' awesomeness. Check out the Patreon. We have new chapter read and reacts and exclusive chats just for Patreons. I'm gonna start, I think, gaming for them more often because I'm a game girl now. I don't know if you know this.
You should be gaming for sure. I
won 3 games now. Like I won them by playing the whole games.
Wow.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm basically a person who plays games. And then I want to thank our mods who rock it out. You pick a number between 1 and 23 so we can.
I'm gonna say 19.
Okay, well I don't know who that is.
What?
I don't have that here. You have to say who it is.
Oh, I thought you had the list. I wasn't finding the list because you were doing it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
All right, I found it. I've 19. Thank you, Traynix. You are today's special squishy. Traynix. Traynix.
Oh, I like that.
Traynix. All right, you ready to do a plug?
And I will do the plug. Hey, YouTube, plug.
Okay, what?
You heard me. I plugged.
You're supposed to say stuff.
I did see
Hey guys,
stuff. I
join the
said, "Fuck."
Patreon, subscribe, join the
No,
Patreon,
don't do that.
Patreon, subscribe, ring the
No,
bell,
don't
please
do that.
comment.
They know
No,
what plug
hey,
means. Stop
genuinely,
doing that.
I'm really proud of the conversation we had. I think this is going to be an awesome video when it's edited. I hope you loved it. And if you did, send it to someone. I want people's thoughts. This is a controversial
That
video.
is
A
true.
lot of people are going to disagree. And what's great about all you people disagreeing with us is that in a few months, you're going to see that we're right, motherfucker.
100% correct.
And I love that for us.
Like, subscribe, send it to people, send it to the person you want to piss off the most in your
Send
life.
it to them. Piss them off.
And then send it to a person who will be like, I told you. And then send it to the person who is your parent so that they can go, what is this shit?
Send it to your parents who don't read One Piece. Just send it to them.
And then send it to your 8th grade English teacher.
Send it to her. See what she's up to. She needs a break.
See what he/her is up to.
No, everyone has a female 8th grade English teacher in our
That's
chat.
bullshit.
It's crazy.
Bullshit.
All of them.
Bullshit.
All
Shit
of them.
bowl.
All of them. Every one of them.
Okay. Now we're going to move into the next one. So can you do a
wait.
little what?
And if you enjoyed the video, please catch the next one. We do talks like this all the time. Anytime we have a good idea, really. And we're not one of those channels that's just going to like make up shit topics we don't care about. We are only going to be doing these videos when we have genuinely interesting stuff to give you. So if you subscribe, you are going to see our best thoughts only. So please do. And until next time,
Squish on squishies.
it's been lovely talking to you. And we keep going
ask you a question?
What? Yeah.
You think that these are only our best thoughts?
These are our best thoughts. I think, well, yeah, these are our best thoughts. You don't think so? You don't think those are our best thoughts?
I'm not half-mast right now as far as like brain power.
I think we kicked ass. I think we did good today.
I'm not saying we didn't kick ass. I'm just saying like saying it's the best. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Drawk, do you want me to do a post about starting the third world, or do you want to do that?
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, I gotta add the Bellamy back in. He vanished at some point. Oh, right, when I deleted all that line art. A Pondamon. Yeah, I forgot that Bellamy got erased when I deleted the line art.
Pondamon. As everybody calls it.
That's what everybody's calling him. It's actually weird. Okay,
it's not weird. It's because of me, Pondamon. It's become very popular. Pondamon.
I was like, why did my phone vibrate? It's because Lav did an update. That makes sense.
I'm hungry now.
You're hungry now? That's wild.
I went to Costco yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I Costco'd. And what I mean by Costco'd is I bought all the food in Costco.
Okay.
All of it in my dishwasher.
You don't have, there's no food left in Costco now. Are you ready? You there? Oh no, they got her. No. Okay.
I told you I was opening my dishwasher.
Well, I didn't hear that. I just heard dishwasher. She went to check. Okay, other people heard it. I just heard dishwasher.
I consumed Costco. It's just me.
That's crazy.
Anyways.
Anyway.
Can I tell you a secret about consuming Costco?
Yeah.
Really? It's a secret about one of the only areas I'm an adult. I have to cough.
Okay.
Just a minute. I coughed. One of the only areas that I'm an excellent adult is my pantry is stunning.
It is. You've done a really good job. Your pantry is beautiful. It has like special lights.
Thank you. So last night it took me 3 hours to put away my Costco.
Oh my God, that's insane.
Because I bought so many things and had to clean out so many containers and rewrite what everything was. I was like, being an adult, so difficult. So difficult. But you know what? I just walked in my pantry when I walked by to my dishwasher. Worth every minute.
Well, that's good.
Every item of food in there looks supreme. It's exhausting to be an adult. That's why you're pantless in public, right? Pantless. You're just like, I just fucking give up. I'm pantless now.
Yeah, that's what happened to them. I don't think it's stocking up on food is just a normal North American hobby. You don't need to do it just because there's a trade war coming.
Oh, I am not stocking up for trade war. I am making the world's giantest garden for trade war. But that's also because I like gardening.
Yeah.
You just wait. I'm growing cucamelons this year. I'm gonna grow the greatest goddamn cucamelons that have ever cucameloned. I'm gonna melon and I'm gonna cuke. Oh, they're gonna be so good.
All right. Are we ready to begin with the third world? I think this is done. I think this is as good as we're getting. You know what? I like it. I think it's fine.
I like it. I think it's fine. Does it need a standing ovation from you?
No. Who needs more than it's fine?
Okay, I want you to know a secret.
Yes.
I have a lot of things to say
Okay.
about this world.
So hear me out. I think talking about the third world. Hey, YouTube, you probably are thinking about the Harley text. You're probably thinking about it and it's driving you insane. That damn mural's probably driving you crazy. If you're anything like me, you've been haunted by 2 pages of manga for the past 5 weeks as it drives you slowly crazier, worming its way into your every thought as you obsess about someone named after a motorcycle. I'm glad we can relate in that. And if you're here with us to talk about the third world, the last page. Please check out the other 2 videos if you want to know our thoughts on them. They keep changing and evolving, but they are a really good starting point to understand where we're coming from. And you might look at this mural and say, that doesn't look normal. Well, the reason is that we're drawing the mural as we interpret it. We are drawing all the stuff on this mural that we're assuming is true.
Hey YouTube, it's me, Mama Drawk. Can I just say something here? We're 100% right. And then when we're wrong, we're 100% right. Also, we're always right. And then when we're wrong, oh well, then we're right. I'm gonna
be real. The last video we just recorded, which you should watch, all about the themes of Elbaph being predicted. I feel like I'm 100% right. I don't need to worry about if I'm wrong. This video, we're 100% right. And when we're wrong, it doesn't matter. It's a different flavor because frankly, I think we're going to be wrong about lots of it.
The last video, we were 1,000% right. And there is no wrong.
Yes, there's no wrong.
There's no wrong. In this video, when and if we are ever wrong, we're still right.
Yes. We may very well be occasionally wrong in this one, and we're still right, though. Don't worry.
And then we're righter. I drew this mural. I've since painted it more. And
you've drawn the real mural.
I drew the real mural. I'm a realist. I'm nothing else other than a realist. I drew this mural. You should show my mural here.
Yeah. This is Mama's mural.
Just put a baby Bellamy. Oh,
well, that was already a Bellamy, but yeah, this is Mama's mural, which is the real mural.
Mm-hmm. I've since painted it some more. I just keep painting it because what I do is every time I'm thinking about it, which is fucking stop, but every time I'm thinking about it and I'm sitting somewhere, then I color it and look at the things and think about it deeper. Because, oh, Oda, why must you vex me? That is all I have to say about that.
Yeah, why? All right. Gang, here's my thinking. The third world, I think, is about the future. We are told this basically explicitly, that it is about things yet to happen. It's Yamato Bellamy, it's a little bit column A, a little bit column B. We're told that pretty explicitly. So the way we talk about the third world, I think the most important points that we have, the things that we need to mention, are inherited will and prophecies. I think those are the most important elements to talk about today. Do you agree with me?
No.
No.
Yes,
okay.
but no.
No. Okay. Talk me through.
Can I do a thing prior to us doing that? Because I think I'm going to talk about some history, because I don't know if you've met me.
You do like talking about some history every once in a while. You talk about a history or two.
I don't know. The squishies have noticed that every once in a while I talk about history. I think because in this context, I want to talk a little bit about some history first, so that later when we're having a conversation, I can refer back to what I think Oda has done.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about those themes.
Okay.
If you wouldn't mind, sir.
Are you gonna?
I was waiting for you to say you didn't mind.
Well, not at all, madam.
If you need to give people an opportunity to have positive protest.
Okay. Well, you go for it.
Okay. So this is going to feel odd.
Uh-huh.
And I just want to preface it with that so that people are like, okay, as we get there. So for a lot of years, Japan had something called Sukoku. I think it's 1639. I know it's 1853 because that's when Matthew Perry arrived. And every time I think about Matthew Perry, I think of Matthew Perry from Friends arriving on the coast of Japan and being like, yo, little pig, let me in. That's what I honestly think of.
Something very, very funny about that. Yeah.
Not seppuku.
No, there's a different thing. Believe it or not, there's more than one Japanese word, guys.
It's called Sakoku. Sakoku. So 1639, I think, till 1853. I should probably look that date up. But if I'm right, high five me. So it was kind of like a fragile peace in isolation. And the reason why this is so important is because Japan, and the reason why I started to go into this is because Drawk said what he did. I started to go down into a historical. That's my historical. That's me having a hissy fit about history. I started to go into this histical, and it started to make me think about some themes in One Piece and peace and isolation. And so in this time, they had like a fragile peace isolation where they turned themselves away from everything that was the rest of the world. Because they thought the rest of the world was busy fighting and having issues and problems, and they wanted to stay in a closed country policy. They just isolated themselves from everyone. They didn't let anyone in, kind of similar to, I don't know, a curtain in Wano or something. And they thought that it would ensure peace and stability if Japan just stayed away from the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But then in 1853, a little dude named Matthew Perry,
from Friends.
You've seen him in Friends.
Yeah.
He showed up with his black ships, and the Tokugawa government didn't have any military to resist. Nothing. So all the Western imperialists show up, and Japan was forced to sign unequal treaties. They're known as the Ansei treaties, ANSEI. And so when they came to the shore, and they said, and Japan had trade. Everybody knows about the Dutch trading partners and the little areas they were allowed and who was allowed to be in and who was allowed to be out. But in general, they had a period of closed country policy and isolationism. And so when he showed up and they were forced to sign these treaties, it was this super slap in the face, because during this time they have this huge Bushido feeling for all of their shogunates, and they have the Tokugawa, and everything is about honor and fighting for what is right and just and following the rules, and suddenly, boom, everything is taken away. It's a total cultural contradiction. The samurai culture said that you have to have strength and honor, and yet they were forced, their shogunates were forced to sign the most humiliating passive role for the West.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you talk about this idea, this is where I first started to think about it from the perspective of peace when Drawk brought it up, because they tried so hard to have quote unquote peace that they put themselves in the most vulnerable position that they could possibly be in.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we had the Meiji Restoration, where Japan tried to, as fast as they could, move forward, gain all the Western skills. They abolished the samurai class. They industrialized. They had imperial expansionism. They started to fight against other countries, China, Russia, the Russo-Japanese War, et cetera, et cetera. And then you could see that those fights led them to their participation in World War I Japan was an opportunistic imperial power. And they really thought that they had done a lot of very important things in World War I. They took advantage of some of the things. They seized German territories. They were really high. But in the end, the Western countries didn't see them as being equal. And Japan realized that despite all the Westernization they had done, all the catching up that they had done, all the help that they had done, Europe and the US just resented them and didn't think that they were worthy of being on the same league as Western powers. And Japan was pissed, which led to a little thing called World War II. You might have heard of it. Where Japan fully embraced expansionism and ended up fighting against all of the Western powers and was on the side of Germany and Russia in the beginning before Russia was like, my bad. And they ended up, because the United States cut off all their power, like, I don't know, a mother flame, and took it away from them so they no longer had access to it, they ended up fighting against Pearl Harbor. Just the way that they said, no, we are going to attack first. Last time we waited too long, and this time we will not. We are going to meet might with might. And so they ended up bombing Pearl Harbor. And then, as a way of using all the power that occurred, the United States ended up bombing them with that power. And so, once again, ironically, Japan was forced to submit to the US, ultimately being defeated and occupied in 1945. So, it's interesting because it feels like, just like One Piece, it's a story that in a world where you're fighting to reclaim yourself from forced celestial powers, the same way that Japan once had to reclaim itself from imposed Western order. And this is going to become really important as I move forward and we have our third world talk. Okay?
Okay. Where do you see that slotting into One Piece? Like, where is the parallel there for you? What is it? Is it Wano? Is it just a general theming influence?
Good. I'm glad I'm already allowed to go there.
Yeah, I think that's a place we can jump into.
Okay. So I started to think about all these different symbols that we're supposed to see. And when you're looking at a mural that gives you just this one specific spread to look at, everything on it matters. It all starts to take meaning on it. So I remembered that there wasn't one of those planets, but 5 planets when we looked at the way the world worked when we were at Ohara on the, do you remember the picture I'm talking about?
The astrolabe? Let me look this up.
The astrolabe, if we could put it back up again. Lav loves it when I say stuff like that. If we could put that up here.
There were put it up so that the stream viewers can see it. Whoops.
Oh, that's so kind of you. Here you go, stream viewers. Astrolabe. Astrolabe.
Oh, astrolabe's not the term, but
it doesn't matter. It's such a good word.
Oh, this
you
is
should
interesting,
say it
isn't it?
all the time.
No. She has a point. This is interesting because that's the One Piece world in the middle for sure. We can see the red line and the larger islands of the East Blue, but then also,
not only does she have a point, so there are
one of them has X's on it. What the fuck? One of them has X's on it.
How many? Okay, wait a minute. That's what I'm going to get to. So there, how many Garosi? That's right, 5. We call them the what? The planets. Boom.
Wait.
5 planets
guys,
up here.
There's also something very, very interesting I want to see. There's actually 6, but in One Piece, we've only ever seen 1 moon.
Yeah.
Well, this doesn't count because this is a satellite of a satellite, but we've only ever seen this moon, even though there's 5 others on here. Interesting.
I need to finish my thought.
Oh, orrery is a good word, and that's what it's called.
Human, you're killing me.
Okay, you go.
Okay, so there are 5 basic planets that you have in there that all come from someone else. And we also have 5 of the Garosi. The Garosi. So who are sitting up. Yeah. I think they are actual like avatar representations of each one of those planets. They pull power from them. They had more explicit power. Emu was one that was able to conduct, control, and hold all the power and allows them to continue living and gives them the ability to live over time and to hold this power. And that's why there's always got to be 5 of them, because each one of them is a representation from each one of the planets that came down to invade or colonize. In this case, that's why I was thinking of the center would be more like of Japan, and these are people who come from the outside, that the center planet had held isolation for years. They've been doing their thing. Then boom, people come to their shore. Now, remember how the planet... I wasn't done. Let me finish.
Okay.
Remember how one of the planet has X's and one of the planet has those line things, just like the Godzilla dude or the dragon that we have in our image? So we can talk about a lot of things because I've made a lot of different connections, but that made me feel like when he went around the red line, he's a literal dragon that goes around the red line, lines himself up, and then the people who were colonizing, creating issues, now live up there and call themselves the dragons because they live on the dragon. That's why they are called the dragon. And that they are all the leftover controlling class that is needed, because you always need to have an upper controlling class from those invading planets. There's so much more, but that's where we're starting.
Can I tell you my interpretation of it? Because I feel like you're on the right track, but I have a disagreement in that everything in the Harley text seems to imply that humans didn't used to be in charge. What I'm thinking is instead that it's that thing you've talked about before of stealing the language of the people you've taken over, that the people who ruled before ruled with dragons and came down from these planets and probably had their gods, the gods of the people who came down and conquered originally, were named after the planets, and the planets were satellites of the core god who each maybe even wore these planets. And my thinking is that they basically took that system of government and language from the people who ruled before. That is the case, because we've seen they can be replaced. So it feels like if they can just be replaced, that wouldn't be the case. However, I could see that they're not supposed to be able to just be replaced, and this is the first time it's ever happened, and that's why
I think they can be replaced. I think they can go ahead, and then I'll say my thing.
Well, think about it. I pointed out that there's actually 6 here, but one is the moon, the only moon we've ever seen. The guy who just replaced one of the planets has a moon-shaped head. Yes. Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay.
So that's why I think that. I think you have to replace it from people who will be avatars from each one of the things that's up there, so that you can make whose bloodline kind of most aligns with that. That dude comes out with a moon face. I think that's who he is now, that particular things. And I think that's why they are called the dragons and live on top of the red line, or the dragon. I think that's what's taking place. So, piece through action. I don't want to get into the... So I started to wonder, because you remember I've mentioned before, it's all about that comm belt. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
You occasionally bring this up.
Yeah, it's all about that comm belt. So I started to think about different things. How do you keep these dudes separate from everything else? How do you make it a real problem? Blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, and you know how I'm obsessed with coughing, apparently. You know how I'm obsessed with everyone is like, oh, the comm belt is for this. Well, the comm belt, I think, is for sure a way of putting away some of the very first power on that planet. Power that knows the real history of what happened during the Void Century and before. And those are, one of them is a giant-ass elephant named Zo, who we've controlled. And all the rest of them are the kings, who live inside of the comm belt, and who can only be controlled by the future weapon, Wimpy Hoshi. Who eventually will have some control over them. They live in the comm belt where nobody can get to them, because if you go into the comm belt, you will be destroyed, etc., etc. But I think they are the original people, and I think they are the ones that know the true history, and I think they're in prison. I think the comm belt is actually a prison for the Sea Kings.
Okay.
So that they can't come out and wreak havoc upon the world and change the balance. I think that in the end, one of the reasons that the Sea Kings are going to be the greatest problem, remember when I was like, maybe Laboon and the other whales will help to bring down the red line? No, it's sure, the whales might be a part of it, but we got some Sea Kings. We've got so many Sea Kings in the prison of the Calm Belt. And I think they are going to be part of the destruction of our red line that's going to bring in the entire world.
So
and that's why we're seeing.
I still am convinced and believe that demons and creatures of myth live within the world or lived within the world. They were trapped in the devil fruits. And whatever being was the red planet that got brought down to become the red line, because like you've pointed out, this planet has pluses on it the same way the snake does. And it's also in the orrery, it has them. Yeah.
Crosses,
X's. Whatever. Those crosses are also on Loki's belt in the image, which makes me think
the middle thing is on Loki's belt.
The middle thing?
The planet with the little line around it, with the line in the middle.
Oh, you're right. It's the other planet, pattern. But that is also on this beastie. And the planet. That's what it was. I got it confused.
And I think that's going to become relevant.
He has the same pattern as the beastie and the planet. So what I'm thinking is, and this ties in, we're going to get to the third world. Don't worry, YouTube viewers. What I'm thinking is, what I'm feeling is that this planet embodied this thing. This thing got brought down. It is the creature of myth that was conjured from this celestial body, from this god, to create the red line. And that Loki has a devil fruit that is this beastie captured in a devil fruit. And devil fruits actually have demons or devils trapped in them. And that Loki, because he has the power of this beast, is the one who's going to be able to break it. That is my thinking. I want to look at this. Impel Down used to be a mine with elevator on the mural. That's a cool idea. I could see it.
I agree. And I think they're 100% right. I think that the Sea Kings, though, who are going to be controlled by Wimpy Hoshi, these things don't have to be separate. I think the Sea King are going to destroy the world government's controls over the sea. I think they're going to unleash a force that hasn't been seen since the Void Century. They're going to restore natural balance of the world. They're going to undo the effect of the celestial occupation. And I think eventually, because Luffy is one of the only ones who can hear them, and Poseidon, they're going to help take down Emu and the Grossi. The Grossi won't even travel through them. They use their little go through the portals of hell to get places, because they won't go through the areas with the Sea Kings. So Shirahoshi isn't ready for that because her power isn't fully awakened yet. But the Celestial Dragons keep the Sea Kings passive by keeping them in the quote-unquote calm belt. And I think why it's really called a calm belt is there's something in there that's keeping them from acting up and using their information and attacking. And so I think Poseidon's awakening, the awakening of that one, is going to be different. So remember how we talked about how both Emu's boat and the other one, which Uranus, and then you have Uranus, and then you have the Noah. The Noah is the only one that's not powered, I think, by, and that's why it shows it here inside of this mural. Only one not powered by the Mother Flame. It's powered by Sea Kings. And I think that's going to be really, really important, because they're going to trigger a planetary rebellion where the ocean itself is going to fight against the Celestian rulers. And the Sea Kings are going to be the one.
The thing that I disagree with there is I don't know if the world will, because I think Emu represents the world, and that's why he has the satellites that are these planets that revolve around it.
I think Emu represents the head of the people who came down, but I don't think they represent the world. I think the other 19 of 20 kings bent the knee, but Alabasta didn't. And I think that Emu represents the person who they bent the knee to, and Alabasta was always out of their reach, and that's why they have such a hard-on for Alabasta. But the reason I came up with the Noah thing is just like in the Noah story, you see animals going on by twosies into this boat. And weapons aren't always weapons of destruction. Sometimes they're weapons of change. And I started to wonder if Shirahoshi's weapon is actually going to be bringing back some of the animals and original pieces of this planet that have been kept hidden away inside of
Hmm.
Inside of the, what's it called?
The comm belt?
The portals.
Oh, yeah.
So they would have kept some animals and some things safe, even people and races, because the animals are all getting on the ark. And I think the ark was taken away, and we had a moment where they were taken into another world and hidden, and that they're waiting to come back. And I think that the ark's actual power is going to be bringing back that balance, those people, those animals back into this world.
I could see that. I could see that a lot, especially because they're at the roots of the tree that we think are connected to that world. I want to also highlight, I've been calling it hell or the underworld. I am changing how I want to talk about that world that I do think is probably an underworld as well. But I think the better way to think of it is like the realm of dreams. And the reason is because I think it's where all these mythical creatures come from, because I think everything anyone believes in comes from that. And that's why in Elbaph, which is tying into the end of the series, we're seeing people's dreams and nightmare creatures come to life. Because I've already been seeing it that way. And then after I was already saying that, we see a devil fruit that's conjuring people's dreamed up creatures as enemies. I think that's and we're seeing it on the treasure tree. I think this is us being pushed towards that image I'm talking about, that idea of, and their mom, the idea of this having been a world of dreams and myth.
I agree. Okay, so I think the invasion is kind of the equivalent of Matthew Perry forcing Japan to modernize, because I think these people came down to the Earth. This is another place that's connected to the blue planet. And they were like, well, you've been hidden from what's been happening on the other planets, but we have like massive modern technology that you don't have. We have all of these skills and all of these abilities that you have isolated yourself from, but no effing more. We need your mother flame. So we're coming down here and damn well taking it. I'm wondering if the giants originally, including Loki's ancestors, sided with the invaders, which is why we see Loki wearing that same herringbone stripe around his waist. But now he understands the problems of the past and what his people did, and so he ends up fighting on the other side.
I think they absolutely sided with the invaders. The invaders to me are the Lunarians, and after the Void Century, we know that there was something called the Era of War, that the ancient giants were, and the giants themselves were fighting the world government. I think they were basically fighting for whatever remained of the Lunarians in an attempt to regain power. So I think the giants absolutely sided with the invaders, who to me are the Lunarians.
Which is why I think the Noah's Ark was so important, because while two things were fighting, one of them was just collecting things that would not be able to protect themselves, or that was super important that they continued to exist, and they were put into a dimension piece.
I love that you're referring to it as the noun, a dimension piece.
Oh, I'm sorry. I created it. I can noun it.
Of course. Imagination Land is hell, kind of. If anyone knows Warhammer, I think it's the warp. I think Oda's got the warp in One Piece, and I'm not joking. I think the abyss that they travel through, that's what it is. I saw a theory recently that those tattoos are the dark mark that lets you travel safely through the abyss, and that Shanks let his arm be chopped off because once he had found someone to be Roger's successor, he didn't need the dark mark anymore because he wouldn't need to go back to Marie-Joie.
Oh, I love that.
It's a good theory, huh?
I love that theory. Okay, so I think the celestial invaders come down. The 20 allied kingdoms align to crush the ancient kingdoms, knowing that if they aligned with the people, that they would gain the greatest strength. And so they agreed. The D clan lost all their allies, and their history was erased. Then the 20 kingdoms formed the world government so that they could keep the quote-unquote peace. And they end up fighting and living on the dragon, so which becomes the red line. And then Emu takes the throne to ensure that the celestial rulers will never be challenged. So I think I'm 100% on that. And so now when I think of that, and I think of your idea of this land of dreams, this underland, I think it's like dimension adjacent. Does that make sense? Like it's accessible, but not in the same way as the dimension is accessible. Like if you eat the right devil fruit, etc. I think of it as being dimensionally adjacent.
I think of them as the same, and that's how devil fruits conjure matter, is by like reaching into a world of dreams and pulling it out.
I do love it. It's also telling that this. Go ahead.
Oh, it is difficult to kind of rationalize then why do the roots need to dig down to access it? But, maybe it's both underneath the earth and a dimension.
Interesting. I like, because we do have some things that we've seen within Mirror World and stuff where roots come in. We should relook at that. So the Sea Kings who once roamed freely are now trapped right in calm belts right beside the red line, as close as they can be. So they're imprisoned, and then they're not placed there for protection. They are made so they can't interfere with celestial rule. And it's how then Laboon can get out and join everyone once the Sea Kings are activated. And it makes sure that nobody can move freely across the world or go over borders or talk to each other.
Okay. Should we start talking about the third world now that we've kind of addressed recontextualizing the last two episodes?
Well, we needed to recontextualize it because literally in this third world now you see Shirahoshi fighting, and it makes me be like, she is now a fully awakened person in this world, and this is where she is going to be able to activate the Sea Kings. And I think that weird fish underneath her is supposed to represent the Sea Kings, but I think it's too small. So I was like, kind of tiny.
I'm using it to represent the Sea Kings for sure, but I don't think all of this is to scale, because if it was, Loki would be just the entire left side of the mural, and Zanesha.
Yeah, okay.
I just think it's not to scale at all.
I'm thinking that the reason that we can see like this Laboon character, who I'm really hoping is just Laboon, is able to fight here is because once Shirahoshi, who is a weapon, but she is not a weapon in the sense that we think about it. She's a weapon in the way that she can talk to the Sea Kings, and she has control over that. And I think she is eventually, with the help of the Noah's Ark in our world, going to be able to activate it and bring that back out of the dimensions. But the Sea Kings are going to be the entire crux. They're going to take down the red line. And then that's why we have all these people from all these different parts of the blue planet now able to fight against this oppressive force.
I just had a kind of realization that I think you'll find interesting.
Okay.
Someone was talking about the idea of a change to your theory where there's multiple dimensions that are stacked on top of each other, and one was destroyed, leading to the weird abyss. The reason I don't think that's the case is that whatever we see has to be something that's fairly easy to quickly explain. And an entire cosmology of how dimensions are stacked, to me, feels like too big of a task to easily process and introduce to the story. But it does lead me to think, well, the abyss is an interesting term. Now, maybe that is just what they call the world of dreams and the underworld. Maybe they just call it the abyss, and that's all there is to it. But it gets me thinking, what if the reason it's called the abyss is that it's been emptied? And it's been emptied because Emu has taken all of the creatures of myth, all of the demons, and at one point they were blossoming into devil fruits. And if someone dreamed up a desire for something, that turned into a concept that turned into a devil fruit. And then when the sun tree Eve was destroyed by lightning, like we see happening by the Arc Maxim, and Emu rose to take over Marijua, it is my belief, and a lot of other people's, that the flower garden is the stump of the sun tree. That is what I believe. Emu sits atop the thing that was a font. And that's why we see real demons being conjured. And now, and I think this fits symbolically so well with One Piece, people are oppressed. Emu owns their dreams. Emu owns the dreams and imaginations of the world. The creatures of myth that were never turned into a devil fruit, or perhaps whose devil fruits were even destroyed or taken by Emu, now are owned, and it is the abyss because it has been emptied and drained of value, turned into commodity by oppression. I think that's such a great symbol that I hope that's the case because it feels so good.
I'm going to add there to my Noah theory then, but because I think it fits perfectly to your idea that what is actually happening here when we see the animals going by twosies is what I said, but it would be the people like the devils and gods that created devil fruit, or the powerful beings that are so different. We still see some different beings. We see people with wings, we see people of different colors, we see people with long arms, long legs. But what we really had put away and protected were the animals and people who were the most different, who would have been the most oppressed, who were the most important, who made the world the most natural, the way that it was, the way it was meant to be, and how it's important that they never disappear, or truly the world would never be the same. And so they all get taken on this boat and protected by the Sea Kings and brought somewhere, because then it would say that when Shirahoshi is a weapon, not in the traditional sense, but commands the Sea Kings, and then they will change and reshape the world again. And then they will also be used for the final migration after the fall of the Red Line. When we unite the seas into the one ocean and we release the Sea Kings, we're also going to have a global migration event of animals and citizens and fantastical creatures.
I want to point something out here. That's actually a really good point here. The person who mentioned that there being multiple dimensions instead of just one raises that it doesn't have to be complicated because the layers of dimensions could be paralleled to the types of devil fruits. And if it was paralleled to something else that we know about, like hockey or devil fruits, absolutely you could have multiple dimensions and it would be easier to explain and process. So I will give you that there is ways you could do it that would be easy to explain. And I think that's worth considering.
Well, good. Now talk about my idea that I had. What do you think?
So I think people in chat are pointing out something that I feel like should be, it was trying to be a counterpoint to what you were talking about, which was the idea that they celestial dragons are called the creators of the world. And I think that is evidence towards what you're talking about, because it's the idea that they've recreated the world in the image they choose.
From their image.
Mm-hmm.
They created it to the way that they want it to be. I honestly think that we're going to find out eventually that the reason the animals and the people are getting, and why it's not just animals, it's people as well, is there are special gods / demons, special people who created these things that are being protected and spirited away.
The biggest thing here. Oh, sorry, you go first, and then I'll say my thought about
under
this.
the nose of Emu in this picture, and so then you have to wonder: is it possible that did Emu either not know about it, or did Emu cause it and take away those things that could have saved them and put them into a type of prison?
So the simplest answer would be that what the Noah will carry up is the ancient kingdom and their animals and people.
I think it's going to be the people that existed before, but I think it only matters in the sense that when we see like we have animals that fight, we have the people of Zo, so we've seen fantastical things. I think that we're going to see more fantastical people and things when the Red Line is broken, and we're going to discover in the One Piece that there are people who are missing, there are animals that missing, and bringing them all back into the world once the world is ready for it. And the world wouldn't be ready for it if the Red Line was still in place, if the Combelt still existed, if the Neptunians were still enslaved in prison. The world wouldn't be ready for it, and Roger couldn't open it because Shirahoshi hadn't been born to control them yet. And so it would have to happen at a very specific time in the future when she and Luffy and others were born at the same time, including Momo.
Interesting.
Because then when they were born, they would actually be able to have the power to control the Sea Kings through her, and they would be able to tear down the wall and then release everything that is found at the One Piece, because then only then would the world be in one piece, which would allow all of these creatures to come back out of another dimension.
Something that I've just realized is that when we're talking about the third world, we're talking about prophecy a lot, because you're going to have to, because that's what's going to happen in the future. And Charlie's prophecy that everybody talks about of Luffy will destroy Fishman Island ties really well into a lot of this as well, because if they are stored in the dimension, if that's where the people that need to be brought out are, and we believe that the Sun Tree Eve's roots reach into there, then if Luffy can free everybody, they would come out in Fishman Island. They would erupt from there.
Yep.
So maybe the destruction of Fishman Island would be necessary to let them
in order
free.
to bring the world back into order. But then the fishmen would actually have freedom amongst the world because the world would have been changed.
Yep. So something I want to talk about as well. This is interesting. This is just a correction last time that I have for some people to emphasize a point. Mama theorized that the minks had to be wronged for Zoe to want to carry them. And I brought up that, well, that makes total sense, because if they could have been the protectors, because we know they were given powers by the Lunarians, because on a full moon, they have the same superpowers they do. Their elemental powers are powered up. Their eyes turn red. They have white hair, right? So I was like, okay, they probably lived around the base of the Sun Tree, and when Zoe realized that they'd fucked up by bringing Emu up top, they felt bad and gave the minks a new home as their tree was destroyed. And I brought up that it would make sense because in Norse mythology, you had animals around the trunk of Yggdrasil, and at the top of Yggdrasil were the birds, which would be the Lunarians, and it's a moon that triggers them. Exactly. The red line would be Jormungandr that wraps around the world at the lower base of it, and that the fishmen and mermaids, merfolk, would be like I can't remember what they're called. Nidogr, I think, are the name of the serpents that wrap around the roots, along with the sea kings. That was my thinking. And people were like, okay, but it's not beasts around the trunk, it's deer. However, it is beasts. It's just that in English translations, because in Old English, deer was the word for basically all mammals. Old English translated as deer, which led to later translations saying, yeah, there was deer around the base and only drawing deer. But when it was translated into other languages that had words for beasts other than that weren't so specific, Jormungandr. Okay, I'm missing a syllable. Jormungandr.
It was Jormungandr.
No, they're saying it's Jormungandr. I've been corrected so many times about this fucking snake, guys. Jormungandr. Anyways.
Jormungandr.
It's Jormungandr. He says so right there. Dr. Jack is Northern European. So in other languages translations, it was beasts. It was just English only had the word for deer. So yes, I actually do think
more likely.
It does make it more likely. The minks even more likely lived around the trunk of Yggdrasil, the Sun Tree Eve, as its protectors.
Okay, so I also want to point out, remember when I told you that
Jormungandr is the Midgard serpent, Nidhogg is the dragon. That's kind of what I'm saying, is that Jormungandr is wrapping around the middle is the red line, and Nidhogg are the sea kings and merfolk swirling around the roots. Base, I'm saying base of the trunk. I guess the bottom base would be roots, but fucking that's not what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter. That's where they would have lived. It makes sense because they were animals that would have been around there.
Yeah.
You also have to remember that the Fishman Island is under the red line. So if the red line is destroyed, then the Fishman Island is also destroyed. And if Luffy and Shirahoshi are commanding the dudes to kill it, then they will destroy Fishman Island. I wonder if the Noah's Ark can be used underground first to help the fishermen get away quickly with the kings during the destruction, if some of the kings can come and help them evacuate. Because you have to return the oceans to their natural state. And I think that is why it was a very particular time. But I think also that yes, it will bring back a sun tree.
So I think the red line did have two purposes. Hear me out about something. Someone's saying the more I think about it, the more it seems like the red line's main objective may have been to encase the sun tree, to block it because the world can't see it because of it. Okay, I think that's very true, but I don't think it was to block it. I think it was to protect it and take it out of access in a Tower of Babel parallel. Hear me out about some crazy shit. You ready?
Yeah.
So we think gods came down, and we see that there are a lot of things that connect Izanami and that creation myth of Japan to this. I think it also ties into some Old Testament shit here. What I'm now thinking is that the humans, when they had access to the roots of the sun tree freely, they could access the power of the world of dreams themselves. They just could do it. And the creation of the red line to encase the sun tree, I think absolutely was the goal, so that people could not access it. It was the destruction of the Tower of Babel, closing it off, meaning it's that people couldn't access that power for themselves because they couldn't be trusted with it. And something that you have pointed out was how well a lot of this plays into Izanami myth, where Izanagi was running away from her demons. He threw down fruit trees, which someone pointed out then ties into the idea that the devil fruit were created to contain them, which I also think is good. But then it also means they have all of these different accesses, and impel down to close it off. Yes, impel down, which is nearby, might have been the mine that mined its roots and was closed off. There's a lot that you could do with it, and the mine was drowned. It was drowned in the ocean. Yeah, there's a lot you could do with that. Theories on the Patreon. Oh, I forgot to check the Patreon today. I've been meaning to. I'm trying to get better at keeping in touch with these things.
Can I do this part first before you check them?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So if we agree that the red line and the calm belt were artificial creations, and the celestial order could have done more than just imprison sea kings, they could have sealed away the entire species and civilizations in dimensional pockets. So it could be that the reason that they're taken away and put on the boat is for this reason. But they could explain why so many races are there partially, like Lunarians, Buccaneers, the people of Zo, because they used to be one massive connected ocean with free travel, and then many species were displaced or taken away by Emu. And then Noah will have the role of connecting them back, the Sea Kings, the final work, transporting beings who have survived at the Blue Planet after this conquest, and unlocking dimensional releasing barriers. But hear me out. I also think that Poseidon, so that's commanded by the Sea Kings with Shirahoshi, then Pluton, the warship, may break through physical structures that maintain dimensional barriers. Then Uranus, the unknown weapon, could be something like spatial warping or the ability to collapse dimensional pockets, in which case this idea that this person came up with, that there's layered pockets, which we talked about and didn't talk about before because you have so many different things like door, mirror. There's so many different things that Uranus could be used to collapse dimensional pockets. And then Noah would be the key that would bring them all together. And the souls are in a separate dimension, like Brooke's ability confirms. Then the dead are not truly gone. They're locked away. And a final war might be about freeing the living, but also freeing the dead. Because if you see these weird souls, on the other hand, that seem to have halos around them, it's almost like the dead haven't been allowed to go where they need to go, that they've been trapped in some way. Like both of us were kind of talking about that before and saying, why are they in halo form? Why are they dead? Where are they going? What are they being used to power? You questioned if it was kind of like Charlotte. Big Mom was stealing souls. Well, these are souls. What are these souls powering? So it might be that the souls themselves of the dead are being in their own dimension that are being used to power something I think you said at one time that you thought they could be a source of Mother Flame. And then
I'd considered. I think I'm leaning more to it's extracted from this dimension.
It would make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
it would make a lot of
sense.
I'm
thinking about it.
If the souls had been also in a different dimension used to power things the way that Charlotte powers things with them. And Emu and the Celestial Order and the Red Line could be keeping the souls trapped to prevent this recycle of rebirth, and breaking the red line and the use of Noah could result in a mass return of both living and dead, aligning all the myths of Shinto, Hinduism, Norse mythology of Ragnarok, Christianity and the Final Judgment. It could be a literal alignment of all those myths. by it being undone. The dimensions collapsed with these 3 weapons, bringing back of natural order.
You raised such a good point, and I'm just thinking about how all of these myths about the end times do have the dead walking the earth. Like, that's such a common thing. The gates, the underworld pouring open. And I want to be like, no, it's not going to be souls. But then the more I think about it, I'm like, that does feel really, really possible. Like,
And then Nico Luffy's awakening of an ancient dead thing could be used as a way of showing that now is the time, because it could have been a hidden talent that was lost, and that soul or rebirth couldn't break through. But the fact that Luffy has been able to be rebirthed and that devil fruit was available may show a weakening, and now is the time. And that's now. Why now is the time? So Luffy being there could be used to break the cycle of the living and the dead. Just like all these different things say. Like, it's everyone. The theme is in Norse, but it's in Hindu, and it's in Christianity, and it's in a type of Shinto. It's in all of them. And so it would really align all those different things. It would align Dimension Piece. It would align all the wars and all the trouble we're having. And so that's what I think is happening, and why the fires of hell continue into third realm. I think happens. I think that happens for that reason.
I'm not 100% convinced, but I'm going to give some evidence to entertain it so that we can follow this train of thought to see.
Of course.
Okay. So for starters, something that's pretty good here is we are in an area on one of the trees. The treasure tree atom, in its root structure at the base, is called the underworld. It feels like pretty solid evidence right there to begin with. It's full of strange and bizarre monsters. Feels pretty good. A little bit further, Emu is associated with the devil. We see a big devil tail. We see all sorts of devilly structures. Devil obviously rules the souls of hell. That is the thing we know. Also calls himself God of the world. Okay. Blackbeard has a ton of Cerberus imagery. Whether or not he is a Cerberus fruit, probably not, because we've seen a real Cerberus. Now, we don't know for a fact that you can't have a devil fruit for a demon that's still out free. I don't believe you can. I believe once that demon's in a devil fruit, it's done, but I could be super wrong about that. But we at least see imagery of a Cerberus with Blackbeard, and he is the character I believe is meant to be this cycle's Emu. And that being said, kind of would imply that Blackbeard, being the cycle's Emu, being associated with Cerberus, also kind of implies this desire to own the dead.
Yeah,
some interesting things
think that
here.
The death or dethroning of Emu is going to represent absolute rule, like hidden control, the weight of history, erasing this ruler. So I think the final war is going to be fought both in the ideological realm and on the world. And that's why they had to continue. If you look at the first one, right? The first and the second, one of them has roots that go down. One of them is planted right on the ground. In the third one, there's no planting, and people are fighting midair, and they're fighting in the flames of hell.
You're right. It is the only place that doesn't seem to have gravity in consideration.
Yeah, exactly. There's no gravity. There's no rooting. There's no nothing. So this says that it's going to be fought in more than one realm. It can be in the dimensions and in the real world at the same time. So it's not just a war of armies and ships. It's going to be like everything.
Okay, I just want to make something so clear. We have talked about how Oda was more involved with Film Red than any other film, and we've talked about it being having possible hints. Can we bring up the fact that Film Red's ending is everyone teaming up to fight a devil both in the real world and an alternate dimension at the same time?
Oh my God, that's right.
That is the ending of Film Red. Is literally everyone teaming up to simultaneously fight the devil in the real world and a dimension. And they're floating in a void. And Luffy triggers the sun god form for the first time in animation.
Exactly. I'm telling you, I think this is it. I think that's what's taking place here.
It also helps if Blackbeard is this world's Emu, Blackbeard's fruit sucks people into an alternate dimension as well.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm. There's stuff here.
So when I started to look at this third world too, I saw that on the one ship, the people appear to be astronaut-y type of people. So I also think we're going to see more people called down from those planets.
I go on, please. Do explain yourself. Is there something you'd like to share with class?
We have the moon system, and it was clear that they built some kind of like stopping point kingdom underground there. We have the planets in behind. One has to start to wonder when you see these people on a ship in the air, why would they be on a ship in an air coming down? Well, I think it's because Emu realizes that we have actual fucking problems once you break the red line and calls back to the homeland and insists that more people are brought.
But I truly don't think Emu is. I think Emu it was a person. I truly don't think Emu is one of the people from the sky.
I haven't decided yet. And I haven't decided why Emu got to live. But I think that Emu has connection with those planets and is still able to contact them, because then it would talk about that idea of resource thievery and how many years they've been using the resources of souls, of the ground, of the sea stone, of the people, of enslaving. And so it would make sense to me that that's why people from other planets would come down and fight against all of our heroes.
Interesting. More and more, the world used to be a sun theory feels like it could be true, which I don't know if I like, but it makes fucking sense. And because I keep thinking about the fact that like, there's this geocentric model where everyone is orbiting this planet. There's all these planets orbiting our planet, and we see a little solar system. We see a little solar system of aliens, which kind of suggests that each of those other planets in our little solar system has their own people, because we see other aliens around Eneru. Can you entertain some crazy bullshit for a moment?
Yeah. I love entertaining crazy bullshit, as a matter of fact. It's my specialty.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard me talk about what just happened, but I obviously love crazy bullshit.
What if this world was the center? It orbits a bigger star, and it was like a small star that these worlds all orbit, right? As satellites. This world was where dreams and souls go. And at some point, a group of the aliens decided to start having, maybe they started to have a colony on it. Maybe there was just some places people could live somehow, because One Piece has its own physics. Who the fuck knows? But at some point, they used their powers as basically gods to bring earth upon this, to bring stone upon this world, whatever. You have all these different alien groups who are harvesting it for energy, who are using humans as miners to mine the souls and the dreams out of this world through the sun tree and treasure tree. Insane shit, for sure. For sure. And then at some point, the humans are like, no, we don't care if you're gods. We want the power for ourselves. Thus, everything we talk about in the first world. They start to use the power for themselves, to elevate themselves to the pillar of gods. And some of the aliens, the Lunarians, come down, put a stop to it, and say, that's enough of that. You guys are causing problems. You're making things bad. Smother their cities in the red line, protect everything, and rule as gods from then on. It would create something kind of interesting, because then you would have all the other alien groups, in theory, possibly be pissy with them, or maybe they came down as well, and that's why we have what you were talking about, where the other planets are where the names come from for each of these groups. This is all bizarre, dude. I don't like it. It doesn't feel right, but it feels like it's considering.
I am really stuck on the idea that the grossier representations or avatars of each of the 5 planets outside of here, that they are controlling it. I mid like the idea of them mining the dead people of this planet now and taking them and using them. I full like the idea, because the arc clearly shows people getting on it, that they took important fantastical people, creatures, animals that were giving strength to this planet and took them away and put them in dimension. I like the idea of there being multiple stack dimensions only for the reason that we have seen so many different types of it. We all know that they can fight in a dimension world and in real life because they fucking showed us in a movie. And we know that there is a hell type place or a soul type place in which Brook was able to pull his soul back out of, and he was able, and that obviously the circles, the Garossi circles, and the ones that were used to summon Brook to where they are being used to travel through hell. The reason that I like that the kings are so important, the Sea Kings, and that they are in prison, not just there in a calm belt, is because the calm belt would stop anyone from traveling. The Sea Kings would kill what came through. But the Garossi won't even use it. They would rather travel through the dimensions of hell than go through the calm belt right beside the damn red line.
Yeah, that is kind of held as something for the Marines to use rather than the God's Knights.
And they have to hide themselves using Seastone.
True. Something interesting here. Wasn't the River Styx also mentioned by some point by Usopp? Probably. Look, doesn't mean it's real.
The River Styx could really be represented by the calm belt in a way, because it's right beside the path to the red line.
Oh,
and
also
that could be where the dead people are kept.
The other dimension being physically accessible at the bottom of the world, I want to give more evidence to. You ready?
Yep.
At some point, it is mentioned that there are currents underwater that you can go into a whirlpool and appear anywhere in the world.
100%.
So I absolutely think that's evidence that the underworld, the dream world, the dimension is somehow within the crust of the planet, despite it being another dimension. Because I think that's whirlpool sucking you through the abyss and spitting you out somewhere.
100%. Think on my idea for a while and tell me if the idea of all of these different religions having both dead and alive people being part of it doesn't sit with you. Like, sit on it. I'm telling you, the more you sit on it, the more you're going to like it.
I'm going to think about this. I think there's something to it. I'm just trying to figure out what it is, because ghosts joining the fight doesn't feel very One Piece.
Oh, it doesn't even need to be them joining the fight. I think their souls have been harvested for use and power by the bad kids. And I think that they are going to be released, and all that power will then be taken away from the bad kids. But the souls will be set free and will allowed to be at rest. I don't think they're fighting. I think they're going to be allowed to be at rest.
At the very least, we know that there's some level of soul power that can be a power source because of the drums of liberation from Luffy and Bonnie charging up Emmett.
Yeah. I also think that there's going to be more to the things that I said before about the drums, the rhythm. Drum Island is possibly going to be a whole drum that's going to send the sounds of liberation throughout the world, because it's an entire island, but that can't happen until the red line comes down, because the drums of liberation need to be a signal to bring back all the things that have been lost in the dimensions.
So Jack, I looked at it. I think right now I couldn't talk about it because I have looked at it before. I would need to go over in detail, but I think we should do some Theory Jam streams soon where we go over that stuff, because right now we're displaying all of the stuff that we thought up.
Let's have a Patreon stream where we go through the Patreon's thinking and we just talk it out loud.
I think we could also invite the crew to join the voice chat for that, which could be fun.
I agree. Anyone who's a crew member can come and join the voice chat and actually talk. Because you find when you talk things out loud, like we do with each other all the time, you get to play with the ideas. So let's do that. Let's make that our next Patreon.
Someone pointed out something that I think is really interesting. Just a random thought I had. Vivi and the Straw Hats declaring their friendship with the tattoo may parallel the creation of the middle name D. I could see that being the case.
I would agree. It's also interesting that they chose the X.
Yeah.
It made me wonder if there was one group, if there was 5 planets that went against them, and that went against the people of the blue planet, and one that tried to help.
XD. Oh God, that's terrible, guys. No.
Okay, what do you think?
Oh, what do I think about which part?
Are we done?
Are we done? Ooh, well, I think we should talk about like how do we think the third world plays out, because like this is about the
We
end of
already
the
did.
series. Well, okay,
I
the
already
Rising of the
did.
Dead. I
No,
want to
no.
talk about the final battle a little bit more,
Okay.
because my
It's
take on it
4:37 though.
is that every time there has been a revolution you're right, to save the world in the past, someone has betrayed it and ended up becoming the bad guy they fought to overthrow. That's how Emu happened, and that's how whatever Lunarian needed to be overthrown before Emu. And my thinking is that Blackbeard is going to try to do that and be defeated, because this seems to be about the cycle finally breaking. Because Oda writes in the Harley text, they will never meet, as a way of saying the world became more separated, and then they will surely meet. Oh, Dr. Jack raised a good point. There is something we have to do before we go.
I do it.
You
Hello,
do it. Yo, what up?
YouTube. It's me, Mama Drawk. I'm drawking it out. Press like and subscribe, then scream and shout, then send it to a friend, then send it to an enemy, then do a dance, and that'll be plenty. The end.
Okay.
Also, if you'd like to become a Patreon, we have lots of interesting things going on. We are going to do a Patreon stream where we discuss all the Patreon's different theories and ideas. If you are a member of the crew, you get to join in chat and talk along with us.
Absolutely.
We also have a bunch of really cool things coming up. We are going to be starting our rewalk through One Piece. It's almost time to do a party piece again. It's time
we
to
do need to do another party piece.
Even though God, I can't believe we have to do a honky tonk party. Anyway,
Dude, I have no idea. The fact that we chose what to include what we did.
If you would like to become a crew member or a Patreon, we'd love to have you. There's the subscription right there. And press like and subscribe if you liked it. It actually really truly does help us out.
It does. It helps us so much. The numbers matter. YouTube cares about them.
Ooh, numbers.
If you like what we do and you subscribe, more people will see it, and that's just a fact.
Can I sing the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 song? I don't know if there's any kind of a thing with it.
I guess do as you will.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah,
that's the numbers. Yeah. All right, I'm done.
I think we're done.
Popping.
Oh, and thank you to our crew. As always, I will grab list. I need to scroll up. Thank you to our crew, Dark A. Kuro, Draco Meme, and Dr. Jack. Can you give me a number from 1 to 23?
Yeah?
Yep.
1.
Thank you to our very special squishy. I think we mentioned you before. Chooch Mahoon. Thank you, Chooch.
Chooch is such a cool sound.
Chooch
Actually,
Mahoon.
Mahoon is too, now that I think about it.
Chooch Mahoon's a great name.
Yeah. I wonder if it's their, like, if there's any part of it that's their real name.
I got to add to this, I realized, because you have added to our theory. There's only one thing we've said today that I think needs to be added, which is ghosts.
No, you do have ghosts. They're not fighting with us in my world. They're being freed.
Yep, this is them being freed.
You weirdo. Over on the side where there's the halos, I think that's them being used. Their power, their souls being used. Remember how you talked about it before? You talked before all about how you thought that there was a land of blah, 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 power, dreams and stuff. I think that's also their souls. And that's what on the other side of our thing, the people coming out with the halos represents is the stealing of the souls for use as a power source. Just like, I don't know, Big Mom. Because remember how we talk about how Oda is a cheeky bugger. And he always he always does a little version of something that is a bigger version, while Big Mom using soul power is a hint that soul power is a thing. And so that's why over in World 1, we see soul power. We see people with halos.
Okay, I'm feeling you. I think we have a beautiful mural, and we will revisit this mural and change it as we change our thoughts.
That's us fighting right out in space, fighting in dimensions.
Okay.
Look at those little ghosties.
Are
Can you make
people ready?
sure those people have their halos? Those poor, poor little people.
The poor little. Okay.
We are
You're
gonna
the one
see
that
a
was trying to leave.
We're going to see a political collapse of the world government with a human war, rebellion, a revelation to the world of the voice century in that third area, a breaking of the red line. I think the kings are going to do it. A reshaping of the planet, then a breaking of the dimension piece and a restoration of all the lost dimensional worlds.
Mhm.
All the hidden races, all the trapped souls, all the forgotten beings are going to get to return to their true form. I am
All right.
so sure of this.
I hope we see it. And if we don't, I think a lot of what we've come up with is going to be there. It's just getting the exact details is the tough part. All right, everybody, I'm going to raid Oak because Oak is great. I'm going to go make chili for the rest of the day, which is going to be fun. Raid Hesutin, but raid a couple Elbaph chapters. You know what? Sure. We don't raid. I actually clipped that. I don't know how. Hey, Sutin, just chatting. All right, everybody, we're sending you off to Hey Sutin for some One Piece content.
Sutin!
Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining. Please click more videos, send it to your friends. Every bit of growth is so important to us. And until next time,
Squish on squishies.
it's been lovely Drawk to you. Bye, folks. And now I hit end stream.
Drockin'.
Ba, 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 ba.